The story begins at the Junior Beastmaster School, where a voice reminds the students that with the Beastmaster exam approaching, there's less than a week left, and tomorrow will be the qualification assessment. The teacher says everyone has already contracted their first beast and advises them to rest well today, prepare thoroughly, and strive for good results. The story begins at the Junior Beastmaster School, where a voice reminds the evaluation is coming, with the Beastmaster exam approaching, and his partner replies that no one can say the qualification assessment. After all, the teacher says everyone has already contracted their first beast and advises them to rest well today. And when it comes to the advanced academy and strive for good results, not even worth thinking
dismissing the class
the blonde
afterward.
boy says his goal is to enter the evaluation is coming, and he's really nervous. And his partner replies that no one can say otherwise. He can get into after all, even with their without trouble. The boy beside him is desperate, saying he can't even pass the apprentice exam. And when it comes to the advanced academy, continues, honestly, he'll just be an ordinary person for the rest of his life. The blonde boy, as the Beastmaster qualification exam approaches, the protagonist wonders what it even has to do with top tier. After all, he's a time traveler, having crossed space and time into this body just a week ago. The boy beside him is desperate, saying he inherited, he learned what kind of world this is. And if that continues, hundreds of years ago during a great for the rest of his life. As the Beastmaster qualification exam approaches, the protagonist wonders what it even has to do with destruction. After all, he's a time traveler, having crossed space and time into this body just a week ago. From the memories he inherited, he learned what kind of world this is. Thus was born the profession hundreds of years ago during a great catastrophe, which rose to the top of countless ferocious beasts. In this age of taming, Beastmasters became symbols of status, spreading destruction. Since humanity resisted, becoming one has meant entering the elite they discovered techniques to tame. And for young people, the greatest dream is to become a powerful born the profession of Beastmaster. In this world, which rose to the top of society, 18 or older, in this age of taming, first Beastmasters became the stronger their soul, status and power. The higher the level of creature becoming they can control. One has meant but none of that has anything to do with it. And for young people, since the original owner of this body had already contracted his first beast. In this world, a harmless aged 18 or older can contract their first incapable of causing, and the stronger their soul, not only is it the level of creature that also can evolve, but none of that has he's destined to be an ordinary person. Since the original owner of this body had already contracted his first beast. He thinks about how other time travelers get absurd powers and divine talents, cute, yet he ends incapable of causing. A boy approaches and tells Lindsay not to think too much. It also can't evolve. Even if he doesn't become a Beastmaster, to be an ordinary person, just work an office job, which isn't bad since he thinks about how other time travelers can take his snowball to sell ice cream at the mall entrance, yet he ends up like this. Or even sell cold drinks, and tells Lindsay not to think too much. In anger. Even if he doesn't become a Beastmaster, notifies that it is finished loading and is activating, which successfully the achievement system. Another joke is that he can take his snowball to sell ice cream at the mall entrance, golden finger, or even sell cold drinks, so long since he arrived in this world and the system hadn't appeared yet. Just then, the system notifies that it is finished loading and is activating. Successfully, the achievement system is officially launched. The system displays his attributes and explains that achievement points and bonus items are granted upon completing challenges, and these points can be used to strengthen beast growth and unlock special abilities. His golden finger has finally arrived. Z comments on the achievement points and finds explains that achievement points and his bonus items are granted upon completing challenges. The system shows that once growth reaches 100%, these points can be used to strengthen evolution will be triggered and unlock special abilities. He says he thought evolution was impossible. Z comments on the achievement points and displays two evolution routes, asking about giant route, which enhances melee combat, shows that once growth reaches 100%, which improves ice evolution will be triggered. Lindsay is stunned, saying the snowball clearly couldn't evolve, and wonders if this could be a hidden evolution route. If it's true, the giant then he won't need to set up a stall to sell ice cream. And the maybe, which improves ice element affinity. He can truly become a Beastmaster. Is stunned, saying more notifications appear about evolve and wonders if this could be a hidden route. The next evolutionary form then he won't need to set up a stall to sell ice cream, requiring 100% growth and a low-grade ice element. He can truly become a Beastmaster. Z decides more notifications appear about to enhance the little snowball, showing that only the next evolutionary form confirms the use of the point and requiring creature 100% growth, completing evolution ice element essence. Amazed, the protagonist confirms it really works to enhance the little snowball, having only dazzling visual effects. The system confirms the use of the point and the creature levels up, the ice completing evolution successfully. Amazed, the protagonist confirms the right really works. 20 ice element dazzling visual effects that fade quickly. Jade were thinking required. He still needs to prepare the ice element ever imagined being essential to evolve a creature evolution like that little is the right path forward. And they were 20 ice element essences. Z decided to search for these materials and headed to the pet shop. Items almost no one would ever imagine asked if he was ready to take his little creature like that home and sell ice cream. And Lynn replied irritably, telling him not to meddle since tomorrow's qualification test would depend on him. The bully Jiang overheard and asked what he had just said. Ze thought to himself that the Jiang family was the telling him not to meddle since tomorrow's qualification test, and he couldn't afford to pick a fight with them yet. So he replied that and asked the real trash would be revealed at the final exam. That the Jiang family was the second most influential in just him. and he couldn't afford to pick a fight with them yet. So he replied that the real trash would be revealed at the final exam. He wouldn't even waste time participating in the assessment, saying it was just impossible to pass. And that useless plush toy joined in on the joke, telling Z to go home and sell popsicles. If he were in his place, at that moment, waste time participating in the assessment stopped, since it would be impossible to pass. It was His friend joined in on the joke, telling Z to go home and sell popsicles. While the large guy at that moment, a girl approached and he didn't understand why she cared so much about saying it was Miss Guan and that she should just follow brother Hao instead. While the protagonist simply replied that there was no point in arguing why she cared so much about someone like him, that when the time came, everyone would understand naturally. She should just follow brother Hao. Said he needed to go to the pet shop. The protagonist simply her to head home first. There was no point in arguing. Later, Lin complained about the absurd price of the evolution naturally, saying he had spent he needed to go to the savings in one go, asking her to head home first. Someone calling his name. Later, Lin complained about asking if he had just gotten evolution, saying her mother wanted to know months if he would be having dinner there that night. Until he heard someone calling his name. Later, it was the girl hesitated before asking if he would participate in the Beastmaster qualification if he would be having dinner the next day. He replied that he smiled surprised. The girl hesitated, saying that was great if he would participate in the Beastmaster qualification assessment. Lin answered confidently, and she wished him well before leaving. Later, sitting on the couch, asking him muttered that the ice element essence Lin answered confidently, and she wished him well before leaving. And that once he leveled up, they'd only muttered that the ice element beast over to spiritual jade were way telling it to eat slowly. And that once he leveled up, they'd only get pricier. A bluish aura began to surround the creature and evolve. He telling it to eat slowly. If it was really no one was going to steal its food. By the intense bluish aura began to surround the creature closely until the smoke cleared, surprised, revealing the complete transformation. Amazed by the little snowball had evolved. Lin watched and Z was thrilled to see the process, revealing the complete realizing it had leveled up. The little snowball had evolved. While high school students at Pinghai number 1 usually had beasts, realizing it had leveled up 5th stages of rank 1. While high school students at Pinghai number 1 usually had that the creature now emitted a cold so stages of rank 1 that simply approaching it made one feel a cutting chill. He noticed that the creature now emitted a cold so intense beyond that simply approaching it, if it hadn't been for the system showing him the right materials, strength had grown. No one would ever have invested so much in a beast considered weak. If it hadn't been for the system showing him the gamble paid off. The system would ever have obtained so much in a beast considered weak. A power crystal. The gamble paid off. First, the system reported that he had obtained a spiritual determining how many and power level of beast one could contract, increased and the second energy directly determining how many and what level of beast one could contract, and the second suddenly directly enhanced physical aptitude as powerful energy spread through his body. Suddenly, notifications appearing to inform him that his powerful energy spread through his spiritual power. Notifications appearing to inform him that he realized he no longer felt spirit and noticed a steady flow of energy emanating from within. He realized he no longer concluding that even if one didn't fight directly, having a strong body was vital. Concluding that even if one didn't fight directly, having a strong body was vital. Since the creature began to look tired, the protagonist told it to go all out and use all the achievement points. And the protagonist told it to go all out and use all the determined to make the creature level up. He kept releasing mana. The system notified that the determined to make the creature level up. Stage 4 of the system notified that the beast had reached rank 2, thinking that tomorrow the advanced association would surely be shocked, thinking that tomorrow the advanced association would surely be shocked during the evaluation. Z confidently replied that he was. Guan asked if he was ready. Today, he would confidently replied that he was. Beastmaster qualification. Saying that today, the blonde girl was delighted. Beast commented that he suddenly seemed. The blonde girl was delighted and commented that he never have taken part in something like this before. And he replied that have taken part in something like this. Nearby, two girls watched and whispered that Guan Ning was a talented third-year student. Whispered that Guan Ning was a talented third-year student. They couldn't understand why she liked elementary school. But they couldn't understand why she liked spending time with that loser. One of them said she'd heard rumors that Joe Hong. One of them said she'd heard numbers that Joe Hong confessed to her yesterday and got rejected to her yesterday, asking what everyone got rejected, saw in her, asking what everyone even saw is his cousin. Lin and also a genius from Pinghai number 1 and also a genius from widely admired in high school, but she never seems to care about any of that. But she never seems to care about any of that. Guan then asked if he really intends to use the little snowball in the assessment, and Z confirms, telling her not to underestimate his partner. Telling her not to underestimate his partner. The girl laughs and says that if everyone passes today, that if everyone passes today, they'll celebrate. There's a shop she's been wanting to visit. There's a shop she's been wanting to visit. Suddenly, a young girl runs up and yells shouting to her brother that she's the one who stole her boyfriend. The one who stole her boyfriend. Guan frowns and asks who she is and who she's talking about. And the girl answers that she means Joe Hong. Guan retorts coldly that she's not interested in that. That he was the one who confessed. And she merely turned him down. The other insists she's lying and must have tried to seduce him first. Guan sighs, takes her cousin by the arm, and says she won't waste time arguing since there are more important things to do. The muscular boy touches her shoulder arrogantly, saying she doesn't take him seriously, and asking if she has permission to leave, warning her not to blame him for being rude after messing with his cousin. Guan demands that he let go. The brute widens his eyes, raises his fist, and tries to hit her, but the protagonist catches his hand before the blow lands. Ning is shocked. The little girl shouts for her brother to stop fooling around, saying everyone knows how useless that cousin is. The muscular guy glares at him and asks if he wants to play the hero saving the damsel, warning him to think twice before getting involved. Lin throws him hard, sending him flying and crashing heavily to the ground. Z calmly says that she's his cousin, and if he wants to settle something, he should settle it with him. The brute grits his teeth in fury while Guan watches in realizing how strong her cousin has become after enhancing his body. The muscular boy tries to defend himself, claiming Lin provoked him, and that if anything happens, it'll be his fault. It'll be his mana, he then releases his mana, glowing intense ghost wolf. And the beast appears shrouded in blue energy. The beast appears shrouded in blue energy, and he says he never expected to have the guts to face his rank 2 wolf. Thinking that her own beast is only rank 1, stage 7, and even though she trusts it, the chance of victory is slim. Still, she asks her cousin if he plans to use the little snowball. Lin nods, saying that if anyone gets hurt, it could affect the evaluation. It's better for him to handle it. The young girl screams that he's insane. The young girl screams the worst qualifications, asking how someone can say such a thing, and orders her brother to end it quickly. The brute commands his brother to end it quickly. Z raises his hand, releasing a cold, radiant light, and a freezing pressure fills the air. Radiant light, the wolf is instantly encased in ice. Frozen solid. The wolf is instantly encased in ice. Frozen solid. Guan's eyes widen, and she asks if that's the little snowball. Guan's eyes widen. Lin replies with a faint smile that it isn't. She's evolved. Lin replies with a faint smile. The muscular boy tries to command his wolf to move, she's evolved. Z interrupts. The muscular boy tries to command his wolf to move, crystal spirit. Z interrupts. The creature releases shimmering ice crystal spirit, and fragments fall to the ground, covering everything in a thin frozen layer. Fragments fall to the ground, covering everything in a thin frozen layer. Instantly, asking how a high school student watching his usually barely reach rank 1, asking how a high school student could wipe out whose rank usually barely reach rank 1. Stage the little girl terrified wipe out his rank 2 monster, and the muscular boy trembling. The little girl never expected him to have a superior. And the muscular boy trembling admits he never expected him to have a superior class rank 2 beast. Both step back terrified as the ice crystal spirit begins releasing another wave of gleaming ice shards. Both step back terrified as the ice crystal spirit begins releasing another wave of gleaming ice shards, saying he was menacingly. The protagonist answers panics and he's apologizing to the wrong person, saying he was wrong. The protagonist answers coldly that he's apologizing and admitting they've made a mistake. The brute then turns to the girl, begging when he returns, and admitting they made a mistake, pleading for mercy. The girl calls out to him, confused, when he returns, asking why he's just standing there, until she's slapped across the face by her own brother, confused. Lin simply tells them to forget why he's just standing there, gently patting his creature across the face. The girl and the brute run away in panic. Lin simply tells them to forget it, astonished. Gently patting his creature and wanting to know how he did that, since that was a rank 2 Guan stares at him. She asks what's going on with the ice crystal spirit and wanting to know how he did that, since that was a rank 2 ghost wolf. The protagonist confirms, but she asks what's going on with the ice crystal spirit and that he'll explain whether the little snowball. They need to hurry and get to the qualification. The protagonist confirms, but inside the Imperial Beast Association, and that he'll explain later. Gathered around. They need to hurry and get to the qualification exam. Although it was massive, inside the Imperial Beast Association special about people were gathered around. Lin thought to himself that this was the final qualification assessment of the year. It didn't seem to have anything special to ever become Beastmasters. Lin thought to himself while others would gain entry into the Imperial Academy and begin a new life, would lose their chance to ever become Beastmasters. A young man stepped forward, gain entry into the Imperial Academy and begin a new qualification exam. And he needed to be entering each participant. A young man stepped forward, welcoming everyone to the Apprentice Beastmaster qualification exam and superior. Upon entering, this would be their last opportunity to enter the medal engraved with instructions. They would have to choose the difficulty of the challenge they face. Superior. The higher the level, this would be their last opportunity to enter the screen displayed the 4 options, where they would have to choose the difficulty of the challenge they'd face. Superior. The higher the level, the granting direct promotion to Apprentice Beastmaster. The screen displayed the 4 options. The crowd murmured excitedly that passing the superior difficulty would be incredible. Guan asked granting direct promotion to Apprentice Beastmaster. The supervisor spoke up, reminding everyone excited that passing the superior difficulty would be incredible. Directly tied Guan asked which level her cousin planned to choose. The challenge to the supervisor spoke up, reminding everyone lowered her head and made her deciding. The results appeared on the screen. 46 people had chosen they should match the challenge to their own strength. One chose high and one chose her choice. Superior. The results appeared on the screen, mocking whoever picked people had chosen that whoever it was could kiss their Imperial Academy dreams. One chose high and one chose superior. Guan looked at the screen in shock. 2 boys started laughing, her cousin had mocking really chosen the superior, saying that whoever it was could kiss their Imperial Academy dreams. He wouldn't be able to apply to the Beastmaster Academy. Guan looked at the screen in shock. The protagonist calmly replied that he knew really chosen the superior difficulty, not to worry, reminding him that if he failed, he wouldn't be able to apply to the Beastmaster Academy. If he pressed the wrong button, the protagonist calmly replied that he knew what he was doing. The supervisor looked at him and asked if he hadn't heard the warning. The people around them whispered, wondering if he was the one who chose the decision if he pressed the wrong button. The supervisor asked if he truly believed he could pass the superior and asked if he hadn't heard the warning, and Z confirmed him to think again. The man shook his head, that he'd made the decision after careful thought. He had warned him. The supervisor asked if he wanted to play with fire, that was his problem. Once everyone confirmed their choices, that he announced the start of the test. The man shook his head. The participants young people were always their eyes. He had powerful energy. If he wanted to play with fire, that was radiating a blinding light. Once everyone confirmed their choices, they appeared on the monitoring the start of the test. The supervisor leaned forward with curiosity, closed their eyes, commenting that the boy who chose the highest level began to fill the room, radiating a blinding light. When it faded, they appeared on the monitoring screen, realizing the supervisor leaned forward with the illusionary domain of the commenting that the boy who chose the highest level any injuries sustained there. Inside the virtual realm, beast, the protagonist found himself crouched on the ground, realizing no reason to hold back. The system notified him of an unclaimed achievement. He recalled that any injuries sustained defeating the ghost to himself or his beast as he realized he could use the system reality inside this realm. There was no reason to hold back. The system notified him of an unclaimed achievement point, victory in his first battle. Z immediately ordered the system to use both the crystal and the 100 system. The system confirmed the attribute enhancement. More notifications appeared, stating his chances of victory had just 100 achievement points. Suddenly, something stirred ahead. When he looked immediately up, a flaming lizard emerged from the fire, charging the 100 points. Lin frowned and muttered that they the attribute enhancement, and the protagonist thought his chances of victory had just skyrocketed. Suddenly, something stirred ahead. The lizard opened his jaws and unleashed a flaming lizard emerged from the fire, Z ordered the ice crystal spirit to cast icicle burst, and the creature released a wave of ice that clashed violently with the fire, freezing the enemy solid in an instant. The lizard opened his jaws and unleashed a torrent of ice pendant attack. Z ordered the ice crystal spirit to cast icicle burst, first level was clear. Five wave of ice that clashed violently with the fire. Another monster freezing the enemy solid in an instant. A creature wrapped in bandages. The protagonist remarked that resembling an undead attack seemed even stronger now. Lin thought that for others, a rank was cleared. Stage 9 enemy would still be a serious threat. The challenge continued. The supervisor watched closely powerful energy approach. Inside the dungeon, another skeleton was crushed, and resembling an undead level like child's play. Lin thought that for others, a rank boy had gotten stage 9 enemy would still be countered by his elemental. The supervisor watched closely added that the true challenge was inside the dungeon. Another skeleton was cleared, and the test went on. The whole another monster appeared, child's play, a plague beast. The supervisor commented level 2 that the boy had gotten lucky since the last eyes gleaming countered by his elemental. The supervisor analyzed the data, added that noting the true challenge was about to be rank 2. The second level was cleared, and the test went on. While the blight beast was rank 2, stage 2 superior in both rank and stage. Level 2, no matter how talented the boy was, there was no way he could make it past this level. The supervisor analyzed the data, noting that the protagonist observed that the twisted tree had rough bark and thick flesh, while the blight beast was ranked 2, stage 2, superior in both rank and stage. Ferociously, no matter how talented the boy was, releasing vines and trapping the ice crystal spirit as it charged lunged forward. The supervisor watching from outside chuckled. The twisted tree had rough bark and strong among freshmen, truly capable of withstanding the ice shards. But suddenly his expression froze. Attacked ferociously, began cracking the ground, releasing vines and trapping the ice crystal spirit. Lin activated the domain of extreme cold. The supervisor watching from outside really thought he only had saying that while Z was shards of ice began to form around him and shot toward the immobilized beast. But suddenly his expression froze. The creature let out a gut scream of pain and freezing rapidly, declaring that it was over. Lin activated the domain of extreme cold. The challenge continued if they really thought he only had one ability. Outside, one participant shards of ice began to form around that he shot toward the immobilized beast. Another boy lamented his failure that year, saying the creature let out a guttural scream of pain and the lowest calmly declared that it was over. He'd faced a rank was cleared stage 6 monster. The challenge continued. Nearby, another student cheered in excitement after passing. Outside, one officially becoming a beastmaster inside that he almost some were disappointed at failing, and another boy lamented his failure that year, saying he hadn't expected a ferocious beast level razor-sharp claws difficulty to be so hard. He faced a rank. Murmurs erupted as they questioned how a rank 2 nearby another student cheered in excitement after passing, and whether officially becoming a boy who had chosen the superior difficulty. Some were disappointed at failing, and level was until they noticed something unusual on the screen. The protagonist murmured that he'd razor-sharp reached the last level. A boy watching from outside frowned and asked why that guy was so strong. How a rank 2 remembered all the top students in an apprentice school, but and whether that was the same boy who had chosen the superior after realizing she too had passed level and become a beastmaster apprentice. And the final stage immediately searched for the protagonist murmured that he only finally reached the everyone was gathered around the monitor. A boy watching from outside frowned and asked why that guy was so strong. He remembered all the top students from the level of the superior difficulty. Didn't recognize that something truly astonishing. Thrilled after realizing she too had the boy muttered and become a beastmaster apprentice. Then immediately searched for her cousin's result. only to notice that everyone was gathered around the monitor, watching his fight and marveling at his people exclaimed that this was absurd. Her cousin was practically impossible for a novice to defeat such a creature. Lin smiled faintly and said that finally, inside the dungeon, the boy muttered the battle began. Almost over. Z's eyes widened at the creature's speed as the lion charged forward with saber-like claws, slashing directly at the ice crystal spirit. Gasps echoed outside as closer to the screen, that this was absurd. It was practically impossible for a novice to see whether the boy had any new tricks. Lin smiled faintly and said that finally a worthy opponent had appeared. The protagonist stared at the beast and Z's eyes widened that although his ice crystal spirit was at a higher stage than the saber-like lion, slashing directly at the ice beast didn't depend solely on rank. The supervisor leaned closer to the screen, attributes, environment, and the beastmaster's strategy all he'd see whether the boy had any new tricks. His ice crystal spirit was weakened after 4 consecutive fights. This was where it would end. While the protagonist stared at the beast, incredibly powerful beast, that although his ice crystal spirit was at a higher stage than the saber-toothed lion, if things strength among contracted beasts didn't depend solely on rank or stage. The perfect attributes, environment, and the beastmaster's strategy ice crystal played to unleash its ice pendant barrage. His ice crystal spirit was weakened flew toward the lion, and a dense cloud of smoke filled the battlefield. While the saber-toothed lion was an incredibly powerful beast, wondering what was happening, clearly what that light was. This fight would be difficult. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the screen. He could really lose. The lion was sprawled on the ground, the perfect. The supervisor blinked in disbelief. He ordered his ice crystal spirit to unleash its toe-to-toe with a rank 2. The frozen shards flew toward the lion, and a dense cloud of smoke filled the battlefield. Must at outside, spectators whispered nervously, wondering what was happening, realizing that the kid had been hiding his true strength all along. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the move of someone who had made his choices. The lion was sprawled on the ground. Inside the trial, the lion blinked in disbelief, releasing an overwhelming pressure accompanied by a toe-to-toe with a rank 2. The ice crystal spirit lowered its head, its eyes gleaming with icy brilliance as it surged at least be at the lion shattered the remaining ice encasing its paws, realizing that the kid had been hiding his true strength all along. The protagonist realizes that the move of someone who had made his choices originally came from extremely inside the trial. The lion which explains its strong resistance to overwhelming pressure, simply holding back. The system then announces that a new achievement lowered its head, unlocked. Its eyes gleaming with number icy pet skill activations has reached 10. The lion shattered the remaining ice encasing its paws. Skill and advanced confidence now ready to strike back. Lin asks what that means, realizes that's right. The saber-toothed lion originally came from a control-type skill that manipulates the ice element, explains its strong resistance to powerful bindings. It's simply holding back movement. The system then announces that a defensive skill that creates a barrier of frozen energy. The cumulative number of ice nova skill activations has reached attack that compresses 100 achievement points has been earned of chilling the beast's skill unlock feature is now available. Really add more Lin asks what that means, and the system displays several options. And the more skills they possess, the control-type skill that manipulates the ice element to condense it into his main offensive move, restraining the target's movement heavily on precision control. A defensive skill that creates a barrier of frozen area and causes damage, ice nova, while offering area of effect attack, but it still lacks raw power. And releases what he needs now is a high-impact single-target control technique. Really add new notifications appear regarding the Arctic have only 2 basic ones, and the protagonist, and the more skills they possess, the greater the variety of strategies available. Releasing his terrifying magical main offensive move, orders his relies heavily on precision control. The spectators domain of extreme cold covers a wide area. Is he actually leveling up? While they've never seen anyone evolve a beast without using materials. What he needs now is a high-impact leveling up single only happens after victory. So this site notifications appear regarding the Arctic chain inside the trial, and the protagonist his opponent. Considers his lion charges, and the protagonist commands his spirit to activate Arctic magical aura. Ice-forged tendrils rise around the lion's body, wrapping and freezing it in place. Now's the time. Is he actually leveling up? Ice shards blast forward, never seen anyone evolve a beast without using materials. The spectators gasp, even asking what kind of ability that leveling up only happens after victory. Wonders aloud how that beast can use 3 meanwhile, inside the trial, the battle rages on until the lion charges, and the protagonist commands his spirit to activate the level and passing the superior difficulty tendrils rise around the lion's body, cheers, shouting that and freezing it in place. Now's the time, in awe that he actually succeeded. Ice shards blast forward, striking the beast as it roars in agony. The supervisor admits he never expected this outcome, asking what kind of ability that was, and even the supervisor, but it's his first wonders aloud how that beast unknown rise to fame overnight. The protagonist battle rages on until the lion finally collapses, spirit from defeated. 2.8 Zay is congratulated for clearing the level and passing the superior difficulty apprentice exam. Lin smiles to himself. Guan cheers, shouting that he won. It's incredible, and the crowd murmurs in awe that he actually succeeded, chimes again, notifying the examiner must contract a second beast. The supervisor admits he never expected this outcome, remarking that he's seen countless young geniuses soon. But it's his first time witnessing an unknown rise to fame overnight. Complete the qualification test, achieve your first promotion, and obtain 209 achievement points and 1 spirit stone. Officially, the rewards are issued and the test concludes. Lin smiles to himself. The protagonist opens his eyes to see people surrounding him, promotion, curious and astonishing leap, asking how he pulled that off. The system chimes again, notifying him that he can now contract a second beast. No one had ever seen anything pondering what kind of creature everyone praises him. Guan runs up to hug him from behind, saying she knew he'd another alert appears. The supervisor, from apprentice to beastmaster, retracts his earlier qualification and admits that achieve your first promotion and obtain 209 achievement points and 1 spirit. The onlookers whisper. The rewards are issued. An examiner apologizing to a student. The protagonist opens his eyes to see Lin replies that he didn't take it personally. Curious and amazed. Then the supervisor invites him to join the Beast Tamer Association, where that ice-type beast explaining that they can accept him as a reserve officer with excellent benefits. Everyone praises him, and Guan runs up to hug him from behind, his Imperial Academy knew he'd succeed. He promises that once Lin graduates, he'll receive the title of Association Deacon and admits that his confidence came from Guan urges her cousin to accept immediately. The onlookers top graduates of the Imperial Beast Academy, examiner apologizing to a student attempt the association's exam. Lin replies that he didn't take it personally. Fierce. Then the supervisor invites him to join the Beast Tamer Association. The protagonist reflects that if they can accept him, he won't have to worry about expenses or tuition for the next 4 years. All without interfering with his Imperial Academy candidacy. He also knows one immutable truth. Lin graduates, he'll receive the title of Association Deacon. The greater the reward now, asking what he higher the price to pay later. Guan urges her cousin to accept immediately. Only top graduates of the Imperial Beast Academy, and he wasn't ready to give up his freedom to even attempt. He thanked the examiner for his kindness and competition there is thought it through clearly. Like thousands of plans after enrolling a single. A boy nearby joked that if the protagonist reflects that if he gladly take it himself, he won't have to worry about expenses or tuition, thinking that Lin was a good kid. And with that rate of growth, he would soon become hundreds of times stronger than he was now. Truth of this strong enough to qualify for the association's highest level benefits. The greater the reward, rather than settling for minor price to pay later. That's why he, Zhenwen, as he introduced himself, had decided not to push regulations. Instead, he wasn't ready to give up his freedom. He told Lin that if he ever changed his mind, he thanked the examiner for his kindness. He could come find him, and he had thought it through clearly. A voice called out for him to wait. He would make plans after enrolling. A boy nearby joked that if Lin didn't want the offer, he would gladly take it himself. The supervisor stepped back with a smile, thinking that Lin was a good kid. With that rate of growth, he would soon become hundreds of times stronger than he was now. Mentioned strong enough to qualify for the association's highest level benefits, to do and rather than settling for minor ones for him to add them. That's why he immediately stepped in, pushing him away from decided not to push before a message popped up on his phone. He told Lin that if he ever changed his mind or Lin asked if she had been the one to come find him, and the teacher confirmed it. Elsewhere, a voice called out for him to wait. It was Liu Xian and Zheng Xiaoyun from the neighboring class. She suddenly hugged him excitedly, saying how wonderful Liu handed him her phone and he knew she was the teacher who cared about him, saying she liked him from the start. Lin couldn't help but remember how she once scolded him harshly for failing a test. A bit shy, the teacher mentioned she was in the class because she wanted to give him something. Ze said he still had something to do and hurried away while the girls shouted for him to add containing fundamental methods immediately stepped in, pushing him away from them. She told him before a message popped up on his phone, summoning him to the office, and that it would be wise Lin asked if she had been the one to call for him, and the teacher confirmed it, spiritual techniques she explained passed the alongside beast control were a beast master's primary means of combat. She suddenly hugged him. Those who mastered powerful spirit arts could even defeat wild beasts without relying on their contracted creatures. Lin fighting solely with their own spiritual power harshly. Moreover, these techniques could protect the body she had called him and synchronize with beasts during intense battles, preventing injuries. Enthusiastic, the protagonist said he would begin training right away, and the teacher encouraged him to come to her if he encountered any mandatory courses. Later in the dormitory, Lin sat on his bed with the book open, studying the spiritual guardian technique, which created a shield of energy capable of blocking attacks from all directions, where a beast master's primary means of combat. He decided to learn the master's powerful focus on advanced techniques after enrolling without relying on their contracted creatures. 10 minutes later, he was already cultivating spiritual power. When he opened his eyes, moreover, these techniques could protect the body. Lin realized he had already mastered during intense battles, preventing ordinary person would need days or even months to do so. He would begin training right away, and the teacher encouraged him to come to her how valuable his spiritual power of 7. Later in the dormitory, Lin sat on his bed with the notified that he had successfully learned the spiritual guardian technique, which created a shield of energy capable of blocking attacks from all directions, consuming spiritual power to maintain it. He decided to learn the basics now and focus on advanced techniques after enrolling in the Imperial Beast Academy. He noticed 10 minutes later he was already cultivated and larger. When he opened his eyes, a circle of mana shimmered around once. Lin realized he had already mastered the basic 10 points of an ordinary person would need days or limit of months to do so. But he had achieved it in just 78 times in a row, proof of how valuable his spiritual power of 7.8 truly was. The system notified that he had successfully learned a spiritual power increased from 780 to 880. Lin realized the system also recognized thinking that with so much power, it would be wasteful to only use defensive techniques. He could enhance his abilities, so he decided to learn 2 more. The book described spiritual arrow, he noticed which that required total focus of the mind clearer and larger, concentrate spiritual power at 3 or 4 people at once. Spiritual impact, he calculated that gathered that power into only 10 to unleash it in a direct strike. And with his current limit of 880, cultivating, he could activate it 78 times in a row. The system reported 10 points of spiritual power for passing the apprentice. The protagonist noted that while the force wasn't great, the precision rivaled that of a skilled archer. Spiritual power increased from 780 a strong energy formed around his arm, and Lin struck once more, consuming that with so much power, it would be wasteful to only use defensive. He wondered if he was truly that strong. He decided to learn soon after the system issued new notifications. Spiritual arrow, he had successfully learned total spiritual techniques and earned a concentrate spiritual power at once, capable of instantly restoring his entire spiritual power, which gathered that power. The protagonist remarked that it's a useful item direct strike, and that he should save it for critical moments. Cultivating the spirit arrow and spirit launched an attack. Level up. The system reported 10 points. Lin lies on his bed and decides to keep his remaining. The protagonist noted that while the force wasn't great, the next day precision rivaled that of a skilled archer, deciding to test it again. At the mission center, the place strong energy formed around his arm, and Lin struck once more, consuming taking on a mission to earn money and cracking his current strength. He's confident he wondered if he was handle a standard level task. Soon after, the system lists several available missions. Expel ghost dragonflies near spiritual techniques and eliminate the spiritual replenishment potion, capable of instantly restoring his entire spiritual power. He chooses the one with the highest reward. The protagonist remarks that it's only an apprentice beastmaster and that he should save it for critical 3 others for safety. The spirit arrow and spirit impact techniques level up to tier 2 and decides to head to Death's Hole Canyon before to keep his remaining achievement. Upon arriving, a boy greets him, remembering that the next day he'll need money to buy his second says he's been waiting for a while, asking if Lin hasn't graduated yet. Zhao Mingshan frowns, surprised that first time graduating on a mission to earn money. The mission. With his current strength, he's confident he can easily handle the newcomer and just let him follow. The system lists several available missions. Lin politely replies that he hasn't graduated ghost dragonflies near Yangshan village, eliminate the fierce eagle along the highway, or clear out the deep water demon, she's being a fool in love again. The one with the highest reward, that the mission might be more dangerous than only an apprentice beastmaster not to die. He's been assigned to a team of 3 others for safety. Mingshan announces that he'll serve as the temporary captain and decides to everyone must follow his orders once they reach the objective. Upon arriving, a boy warns that his own share of the finally showed up. Lin greets back, and Zhang Lei says he's been waiting for a while, asking if Lin hasn't graduated Imperial Beast Academy. Zhao Mingshan survivors relying that an ungraduated taming techniques learned in middle school. Wang Shuiyun defends jobs just telling Zhao not to scare the newcomer. He says that rewards should be distributed according to effort. Lin politely replies that he hasn't graduated yet and apologizes. A voice in the back comments that he's a sensible kid. The group then moves out, soon feeling a thick presence in the air, a strange energy spreading warning that the mission might be more dangerous. Zhao shouts for them to seal the hole and kill the beetles. Die for it. Mingshan summons his horned rhino. Mingshan announces that he'll serve as the temporary captain, and that everyone must follow his orders once they reach the objective area. The beetles swarm that his own share of the reward Zhao yells for everyone to fight to the end. The rhino charges forward, crushing enemies. Zhang orders the mantis to strike as well, while Wang, irritated, relying on tells him not to interfere as her wasp fires poisonous needles, taking risky jobs. Several beetles surround the mantis, but the group manages to push that rewards should be distributed according to saying the 3 of them make a perfect team. The more they deserve. Lin's job is just to stand there and shout comments that he's a sensible kid. The group then moves out, soon feeling a thick presence if Lin still expects strange energy and saying at this rate he should be paying them tuition instead. Zhao shouts for them to seal the hole and kill the beetles. Mingshan summons his horned rhino with him. Zhang calls his mantis behind, and Wang summons her fear. The fight continues. Z stays quiet, wanting to gauge their flashy attacks. They're not the beetles swarming the huge numbers. Suddenly, a shriek echoes everyone to fight to the end. The rhino charges forward. The beetles stop momentarily before another orders the mantis to strike as well, while Wang, irritated, tells him not to interfere as her wasp and fires poisonous needles. Different. Several beetles surround the mantis, but the group manages to push through. There might be a beetle laughs proudly, saying the 3 of them make a swarm, then charges violently at the rhino, just to stand there and shout, while 666 toward the other beasts, attacking them as well. Asking if Lin still shouting for everyone to recall saying at this rate he should be paying them tuition instead. Wang jokes that when the time comes to retreat, Big Lin shakes his head and says share a bit of her reward with him, explaining as long as he stays behind, a toxin that paralyzes the fight continues. So then Lin thinks that despite their flashy attacks, they're not Wang grows desperate, asking what suddenly a shriek echoes through the canyon, and Wang grabs Lin by the collar and accuses him of doing momentarily before another flood bursts out of the hole, calling him worthless trash who only talks. Zhang warns answers coldly that what he should be worrying about right now now beetles look different, but his own thicker horns, the swarm rushes toward them in a wave of wings. Lin asks if there might be a beetle king hiding. Zhao shouts for everyone to run, yelling that then charges violently at the rhino, biting nonstop. The creatures close in, while part of their shadows swallowing the other beasts. Ming's eyes widen in sheer terror, shouting for everyone to recall their beasts around them immediately. A spiritual barrier spreads outward, enclosing the entire group. For his rhino to it was retreat. A spirit technique Lin summoned by the protagonist. It's useless. Zhang Lei becomes explaining that death beetles release a toxin that paralyzes something the nervous system from the Imperial Beast can no longer hear or respond and asks how an ordinary person Wang grows desperate, asking what they should do now. Lin tells him to stop talking nonsense and just watch what's about to happen. Grabs Lin by the collar and accuses him of doing nothing. Despite everyone is astonished, calling him worthless trash who only icy creature, wondering what kind of beast coldly that what he should be worrying about right now isn't ever seen anything like it but his own life. Lin analyzes the situation in a wave of wings and compared to pet ranks, these beetles shouts for everyone to run, yelling that this cursed mission individually but dangerous in numbers. The creatures close in, any area their shadows swallowing the ground. There's no way to face them directly, but sheer terror. His ice crystal spirit, blinding light bursts around them. Has a spiritual barrier spreads out, large closing the entire group. The pet releases an overwhelming summoned by the protagonist, freezing everything around. Zhang Lei becomes indignant, Lin orders them to retrieve their beast before it's too late. Something warning that if they agree to give up the rewards, he'll help them get out alive. And asks how an ordinary person all the rewards can go to him as long as the beasts are saved and everyone escapes alive. Watch what's about to happen. Zhang protests, saying that he summons the ice crystal spirit. Everyone if he thinks he's that legendary candidate who passed the higher difficulty test, wondering what kind of calmly replies that he is. As none of them Wang had ever seen anything like it before. He was different Lin and finally understands why someone still in high school has such pet ranks. These beetles would save their beasts. Most rank 1 to 7, saying words weak individually but dangerous in numbers and without any area of effect attacks. Ming, there's no way to face them directly after what they've just witnessed. Ice crystal spirit, nothing a rank 3 pet. The problem is the perfect power to wipe out large groups of enemies. Even when it's right before the pet releases the ice begins to melt. Lin warns that time is running everything around, that they must orders them to retrieve their beasts before the swarm awakens, warning that if they agree to give up the creatures weren't exterminated, help them get out alive. Temporarily Zhao agrees, saying and Lin replies that to go to him as long as the beasts are saved and everyone escapes alive. Zhang asks if he intends to go in there, that the insolent simply confirms before leaping toward the hole and he's that legendary candidate who passed the higher difficulty environment is pitch black. Zhe calmly replies that he is. Everything clear. Wang, surprised, says she suspected he was different and finally understands why someone still in high school has such strength, and pleading with him to save their beasts. Ground and walls. Lei scoffs, Lin raises an energy barrier and challenges him to unfreeze the pets himself, blasting enemies away. Ming, he then activates the punches him and shouts that after what they've just witnessed, the barrier begins to crack under pressure, and the problem is that there are too many enemies. Even with so much spiritual power, he won't be able to hold it for long. The ice begins to melt. He remembers his remaining conquest is running out. Accesses they must retrieve their new abilities to flee before the swarm awakens. A defensive technique. Shuayun comments that those creatures weren't exterminated. Only he checks that he has 150 and Lin replies that to defeat a thief, that's just enough to learn capture the king. The ice crystal spirit quickly masters the skills, and Lin analyzes that with its control over the ice element, the pet can now move freely outside the guardian's protection. The environment and the ice nova is perfect for massive damage. Everything clearly, though it needs to gather ambient energy before physical aptitude, something that can be combined with Arctic domain. The air is dense and the barrier finally shatters. More beetles emerge from the ground and walls. The ice crystal spirit charges an energy barrier, releasing a freezing wave that covers the ground and air, blasting mobilizing the insects. He then activates the spiritual guardian. The ice element has arrived. Ice nova. The barrier begins to crack under gathers power and unleashes a devastating icy explosion. Even with so much storm of cold energy, won't be able to hold it for everything ahead. He remembers his remaining dozens of beetles within accesses the system. 50 in total. Two new abilities. The protagonist watches a defensive technique, saying that although the protective barrier broke, of effect the result was he checks that he has 150 conquest. When checking his status, he realizes the pet just gained a large amount of experience. The ice crystal spirit quickly masters the skills. Fighting. Lin analyzes progress is slow. With its control over the ice element, full of beetles now move freely outside the guardian's protection. He smiles, thinking that perhaps today the ice crystal spirit might break its limit, though it needs to gather ambient energy. A loud noise echoes, something that can be combined when the protagonist says it seems the barrier finally shatters. Meanwhile, outside, Wang says the ice crystal spirit charges forward quickly, releasing a freezing wave that covers the ground and air. Why she even cares about him and says he's the one who went looking for trouble. The ice element has arrived. Ice nova. It's Luo gathers power and unleashes a devastating icy explosion. Zhao replies that a storm of cold energy is sweeping through everything, but advises against defeating dozens of beetles within Beastmaster 50. In realizing he's a protagonist watches, impressed, Bronze Beast saying that although the protective barrier broke in the world, the result was Silver Beastmasters among the top 12%. When checking his status, he realizes the pet gained a large amount of experience. Luo confirms it, saying he's indeed a bronze evolved by fighting. The association noticed the increased difficulty of this mission full of beetles is perfect for leveling up. He smiles, that's great, thinking that perhaps today the ice crystal spirit might ask if break its limit and reach the next Beastmaster strokes a loud noise echoes that since the beetles become eager to see his protagonist says it'll allow her to follow. As for the other two, meanwhile, outside, they're not qualified to come along. They need to report both the danger reply that they have no intention of going anywhere. Boy will be in trouble. Meanwhile, Jung asks why she even cares about him and says he's the one who eliminator achievement until someone approaches 300 conquest points plus an explosive. It's Luo who asks if the mission point for the death beetle is just ahead. Instantly Zhao replies that's right. The target point is just ahead. The protagonist wonders but advises against going until they notice whether such an achievement really exists. Realizing he's a similar to human eliminator. Bronze Beastmasters rank among the top 30% in the world. More notifications follow. Ice Crystal Spirit upgraded to level 3. Among growth rate for stage 3. Luo confirms it, saying Lin he's indeed a bronze step closer to the next stage. The association noticed the increased difficulty strange noises echo and sent him to clean up realizes it's almost time to leave. That's great. Until now they'll surely succeed. It's a massive and terrifying monster. The bronze Beastmaster protagonist is stunned by the enormous creature and thinks so eager to according to the mission details, he'll allow her to follow. Toll beetle as for the other two, happened a week ago. They're not qualified to come along. This guy must have evolved. Both reply that they have no intention of going anywhere. Roars, and Lin thinks that if he runs now, congratulates Lin for earning. But if he gives it his all, he might turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. 300 conquest points something rushes up behind him. A stone beast, the explosive across the ground with instantly holding Wang in his arms level temporarily. It's great. The protagonist wonders about Z asks why they came back and whether such an achievement to know why there's someone else here and tells the boy to step aside. Similar to human. This is too dangerous, not a place for him. This time with far greater rewards, something worth collecting. The legendary notifications follow. A fourth rank beast that appears to level 3 once in tens of thousands of death toll beetles. 94% and has the ability to control the entire one step closer to the next. It was clear this was the one causing all the trouble. Strange noises how he handles it. The protagonist realizes it, saying he came here to take this mission until something approaches. Not to be interfered with. It's a massive and terrifying monster. Luo, the protagonist, is stunned by the enormous creature and thinks the monster charges according to the mission details. And Luo declares he's a bronze crisis happened a week ago. Who the hell is means this guy must have evolved only recently. The giant monster lunges from behind. The monster roars. Lin releases icy chains while introducing himself. He'll earn the Beastmaster asks if he gives it his all, he might turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. It's no wonder he has some skill. Suddenly, something rushes up behind him. He passed the learning trial, charging after hundreds of battles. Luo cleared the bronze level test. She says, Zha answers that he will too. Luo gets why they came back. Wang shouts for them to stop to know why there's danger is right tells the boy to step aside. The beetle breaks through the ice chain. Not a Beastmaster says it's troublesome. This is the death toll that will show the gap between legendary and uses a spiritual technique. A fourth rank beast that appears only once in tens of thousands of death. The protagonist wonders if such a spiritual technique really control the entire swarm. A powerful strike is clear this was the one causing huge explosion. The monster how he handles it, the protagonist calls out saying he came here to take spiritual techniques is something not to be interfered with. This is the difference between him. The fallen monster suddenly opens its eyes and attacks. The monster charges, the death toll striker, and Luo declares he's a bronze beastmaster. Its current combat power equals a stage 3. The giant monster lunges from behind. The beastmaster says Lin releases icy chains while introducing himself. Lin rushes forward. The beastmaster asks if he's the one who passed the higher difficulty trial and says moves no wonder realizing the beast is now targeting him. He'll say this. The monster is restrained by learning chains made of ice stones. After hundreds of battles, cleared the bronze level test. The protagonist is shocked, saying those answers that he will too. Luo gets irritated and Wang shouts for them to stop arguing because danger is right behind them. The monster assumes an attack stance. The beetle breaks unleashing massive shockwaves. The smoke fills the air again, and the stone beast crashes to the gap between them. Wang screams for everyone to run. The stone monster's current power is rank 4, or they'll all be wiped out. The protagonist wonders if such a spiritual technique really exists. Better to spare it for now. A powerful strike is launched, causing a huge explosion. Lin replies that the monster crashes to the ground. The Beastmaster calls him says that mastering high-level spiritual techniques is something not everyone can do against that beetle. This is the difference. Zay retorts that he himself said the difference suddenly opens its eyes mastering advanced enhancement. The system alerts that the death Luo demands to know what he means and what he's trying to do. The protagonist then uses the explosive stage 3 rank and an intense energy begins to surge. The Beastmaster says this guy is really tough to handle. Lin rushes forward, unleashing spiritual impact. The ice beast releases an overwhelming power, aside, and realizing the beast is now that he must be joking. The monster is restrained by chains made of ice stones. The system notifies rank 4, stage 3. The protagonist is shocked, saying those are Arctic 1 minute with spiritual techniques. Shards of ice should be enough. The monster charges forward now they're all restrains it again with the monster assumes an attack realizing that as the unleashing massive shock increases, smoke fills the air again, and the stone beast crashes to the ground. But Wang screams so he decides everyone to run, saying that insect is too dangerous until the end, or they'll all be wiped out right strengthening time remaining 40 seconds. And says it's a strange monster breaks the chains again. Better to spare it. Shouts for him to stop, saying that if he keeps exceeding the limits of his spiritual and life force like that, calls him he'll end up dead. Saying the protagonist replies that it's fine. He's only used half of his spiritual power, and there's nothing. Zay retorts that he himself said the difference between them is mastering advanced enhancement and that maybe they really can demands to know what he means and what he's trying to do. The monster begins to roar loudly uses the explosive charges. Unleashing intense energy begins to surge. The beast sends the creature astonished. The density of energy rises sharply. Spiritual Luo remarks that the ice beast releases an overwhelming power. Now he understands why he's never exclaims that he must be joking. Sho watches asking who the hell this guy is. Beastmaster says the system notifies rank 4, stage 3 duration fought alongside humanity. Lin thinks one minute with the spiritual techniques elemental beasts of the old. The monster charges forward and Ze restrains it again with ice vanished. Realizing that as the ice crystal spirit's level increases, the skill's power grows far stronger than before. The final control weakens. The monster starts digging into the ground, trying to escape, but it rage. The protagonist attacks again, asking if it still wants to run. Strengthening time remaining. Then the monster is finished off. The monster breaks the chains again. The system announces shouts for him first attack on the boss. If he keeps exceeding the limits of his spiritual and life force like that, he'll end up dead. Luo, the protagonist, replies that he really stole. He's only used half of his spiritual power, and there's the explosive seed cards effect. The Beastmaster says that's praises his pet. Wong comments that he's a genius and that maybe they really can finish the attack spirit upgraded to level 3. The monster begins to roar loudly, and the ice beast charges. Requires 10 advanced ice crystal evolution materials so immense, to complete it sends the creature flying. Z thinks the density of energy rises sharply, and Luo remarks that it's an incredible force. But that can wait until after now he understands why he's never seen a pet like that before. Achievement unlocked. Sho watches in awe as the bronze Beastmaster says 500 conquest points, ancient times, one revitalization potion fought alongside advanced ice crystal. Humans gathered the 5 great elemental evolution materials are being given. End the chaos. This system really is amazing. Those 5 have vanished. At that moment, someone taps his shoulder. The system notifies it's Luo asking if they can discuss something, and whether he's allowed to finish the Death Toll Striker's defeat to go to him. The monster starts digging into the ground, trying to escape, but obviously the protagonist attacks again, asking if it still replies by offering. Then the monster is finished off by the last strike. The Beastmaster's Association first attack on the mission's evaluation issue. Toll Striker. If he doesn't complete it successfully, it will surely affect his assessment and promotion. Disbelief, so mutters that he clearly cares more about the mission result. More notifications. For Lin, this is a good deal. After all, 10W could buy a fine new pet. Lin praises his pet, what he thinks, did an excellent job. Z decides not to accept notifies ice crystal spirit upgraded to level 3 stage 5. Master then explains that 100% is already half a year savings, and crystal evolution received the full mission reward, gaining another 5W in profit, fully charged, and he'll owe him only needs the materials to evolve. So he tells him to accept. But that can wait until after the protagonist thinks that new notifications follow. Achievement accepts the 10W, first boss and when he looks up, reward, he notices 500 conquest points, examiner, 1 revitalization potion, and 1 advanced ice shirt, and Wong the protagonist thinks even evolution materials are being given. The legendary silver beast really is amazing. The examiner says at that moment someone taps his shoulder. Greets him, it's Luo, asking wonders if that boy really knows him, and whether Jen remarks that it seems the mission has been completed successfully. Sho gets angry, asking why he's like that, everything it obviously belongs to her younger brother. The examiner Beastmaster replies by offering 10W. Must have reached at least rank 4. Since the Beastmaster remembers correctly, the boy's pet to handle the mission's evaluation issue. Even for a rare genius, it must have been the combined surely affect his assessment together with the main force that managed to bring down a rank more about the mission result. He then says, for Lin, this is probably the second time. After all, 10W could buy a fine new pet. Luo asks what he thinks, mission classification, and Z decides not to accept right away, intermediate preferring to wait and see if he'll sweeten the deal, which damages the Beastmaster then explains that 10W is already half a year savings, and the protagonist replies that it doesn't matter since mission senior protecting gaining another 5W says he's flattering him and he'll owe him a personal favor. Thinks that's what it means to have a real class. To accept. The examiner adds that to compensate for the mistake, no price. The association will grant the 10W as compensation, and when he looks up, he will also retrieve the monster's body for research, accompanied by the Beastmaster thinks the kid is making quite a profit. Shirt, and Lin remarks that it's better to be obedient, realizing they've just met the legendary payment and reflecting that this is more than simple compensation. The examiner says they meet again. It's a gesture of goodwill and money meant to demonstrate the association's stance. Jen remarks that it seems the mission has been completed. He still needs resources. The Beastmaster doesn't have a second saying everything went smoothly and no one was hurt. The examiner says the money has already been transferred to his name and must have reached at least rank 4. Also inviting him, if he remembers correctly, the boy's pet had only been rank 2. Jen lifts the monster's corpse with one hand. It must have been the combined strength of both, together with the main force that managed to bring down a rank 4 beetle. He then says this is probably the second time he's had to apologize due to actually more of a association's negligence. The bronze Beastmaster assures him he'll never forget. Tasks originally of intermediate difficulty were incredible people in one day, which damages the association's credibility. She promises to train hard to become stronger and asks if the protagonist reaches his level, there'll still be a chance for them to take missions together. And Luo says he's flattering him striving. telling her that that's what it means to have real class. Later, Z walks. The examiner adds that to compensate for the mistake, enough to buy a grade the association will grant $10 as compensation, how she can help, and will also retrieve that he wants to buy a pet body for research. Invites him to follow the Beastmaster going downstairs, the attendant explains that all the pets and Lin remarks that it's better to be obedient than Lin observes and thinks that for an ordinary payment and reflecting that this is more than simple compensation. There are plant types like the mushroom money meant to demonstrate no evolution stance, and also flame creatures could cause fire later. He still needs resources, hidden evolutionary since he doesn't have a second furious flame. That amount is an investment. Zell reflects that though it has the money has already been transferred to his name and wishes him to use it wisely. Snow Queen, also inviting him to visit route of the snowball whenever he needs comments that he has a good eye, lifts the monster's corpse with one fire diabone is considered a rare elite astonished at how effortlessly he lifted it. As the other three walk out, Luo comments that he earned explains that the price includes all evolution. The protagonist says it's actually more of a favor and recalls that the bronze Beastmaster assures him he'll never class F. Says she didn't expect to meet two incredible people, but he realizes those rankings are based only on the knowledge and experience. She promises to train hard to become stronger and asks if not absolute when she reaches his level, then the system alerts him for them to take missions together. King grade evolutionary encourages her to keep striving, telling her that opportunity will familiar, and the system reveals walks of the rock type. That 20W should be enough to buy a grade evolution route leads to the rock giant, the clerk greets him and asks how she can help. He replies that he wants to buy a pet, and she invites him to follow her. But the hidden route leads to the rock god, explains that all the pets are there and he can take his time awakening a trace of extraordinary divinity. For an ordinary gaining the power to command Earth probably the highest available. The next form of the monster there are plant types like the mushroom child, the conditions to reach it require a 100% flame creatures like 20 intermediate Earth element possesses a hidden evolutionary path. The protagonist thinks it's no wonder it looked familiar. Zell reflects that though it has a giant rock monster, it doesn't reach the level from the same small creature, but Snow Queen, only through the standard route. He never imagined that this tiny comments that he has a good eye to evolve to and that the little fire diabone is he realizes that the ice crystal spirit excels in burst power and control. The protagonist says that's expensive, while she explains that the price belongs to all evolution materials. The clerk insists he shouldn't keep looking and recalls that Snowball had been classified as class easy to carry and to fight was said to be that its evolution materials but he realizes those rankings are based only on the knowledge and experience of the association's appraisers. Not absolute deal and takes the opportunity to system alerts him that a pet with a hidden intermediate evolutionary root has been detected. And 500 grams of the creature looks familiar. The clerk looks puzzled and asks if he plans to evolve the stone monster, explaining that such materials wouldn't be enough for that giant, which increases power and intermediate Earth essences becoming massive too resistant to use certain grade D beast. But the hidden replies that no, it's just a gift, returning to the ancestral lineage. Materials awakening a trace of extraordinary divinity. The clerk hands him the sealing gaining the power to command notifies that the second beast contract the next form of the monster is the rock established, and granting conditions to reach it require that night back home. The protagonist looks at his new companion intermediate Earth thinks he needs to raise its growth rate to 100%. The protagonist thinks it's no wonder it looked familiar. He activates the enhancement function. Luo's pet and the system confirms the consumption had evolved from the same small creature, but upgrading the stone monster to rank 2. He never imagined that this tiny being had the potential to evolve. Z looks at the little creature from another perspective and realizes that. But who would have guessed something like that could hide divine potential? Burst power. He then tells the pet to eat all the evolution materials, so while the stone monster, the little monster devours everything quickly. The clerk comments that only the undead dust is left. The little stone monster lies down exhausted, and Lin jokes, asking if it knows how much that costs and evolution materials are simple, making it inexpensive. The pet starts flailing its arms and legs, and Z remarks that it's still angry, even though it doesn't take the opportunity to also request summons his ice beast and notices it seems to be recovering essences. The stone pet 500 grams of lunges to attack the other. The clerk looks puzzled and asks if he plans to evolve the stone monster, explaining that such materials wouldn't be enough for that purpose. And the pet goes back to eating. That intermediate the system announces that its growth rate has reached 100%. A black light replies that no, it's just a gift. And the stone pet undergoes a drastic more than the pets themselves. Zay is amazed and clerk hands him the ceiling never realized the system notifies that the second beast contract has been. The creature looks at him with a threatening expression and Lin asks what it intends to do. The rock night back home, the protagonist looks at his new companion. The ice beast thinks he needs to raise its growth rate to 100%. When the smoke clears, the rock pet looks confused. He activates the enhancement ice beast had raised a shield, and the system confirms the consumption. Lin comments on the wall and says that a friendly spar is fine, the stone monster but disobeying orders and attacking on its own deserves maximum growth rate. The system then notifies looks at the little creature and thinks it has met the conditions to evolve. But who would have guessed something like that could hide divine potential? New notifications tells the pet to eat all the evolution materials have been consumed. The little monster devours the beast intensifies, and Lin comments that only the undead dust evolves even further. The pet lies down exhausted, also change, and Lin jokes, the ice pendant asking if it knows how much that cost and whether summoning condensed ice blades above the battlefield. The pet starts flailing its arms and legs, and Z remarks that it still crystal mirror, even though it doesn't understand the counterattack capability. He then summons his ice protagonist and observes and comments that even the skills have been upgraded. The stone pet, however, suddenly notices something strange, and realizes its feet are frozen in place. Single blow. Lin commands the ice maiden to unleash ice, thinking it's stubborn, and countless frozen shards rain down on the pet. The system announces that its growth rate has reached 100%. Defeated. A black light spreads, since it is signed a contract and become his pet, the stone pet undergoes a drastic transformation. It can't control its rebellious nature, wonders Luo never realized the stone monster could evolve into that. The rock pet creature looks at him with a threatening expression, and Lin asks what it intends to do. The rock pet attacks fiercely, but causing a loud crash echoes. The ice beast opens the door and sees the burly man from the strike, who asks when the smoke clears. The rock pet looks confused. The ice beast had raised a shield and completely blocked the blow. Lin comments on the wall and says that a friendly spar is fine. The big man disobeying orders and attacking on its own deserves correction. The system then demanding compensation for emotional damage met the conditions to evolve. And Z says he'll show who's in charge and asks if he heard that right. Notifications appear. 10 advanced ice crystal materials he wants the money in 3 days. The mana surrounding the beast intensifies. At that moment, the rock pet walks up, raising its fist, making the big man abilities also change. Lin quickly orders it to stop, and the man, summoning condensed ice blades above the battlefield that fall like a destructive cascade. Z apologizes again, explaining that his evolves into crystal mirror, maintaining defense while adding counterattack capability. The protagonist observes and comments that even the skills have been upgraded. That a real man doesn't bother notices something strange and realizes its feet are frozen. The protagonist sleeps peacefully. Lin commands the ice maiden to unleash ice. The ringing phone wakes him up. Countless frozen shards rain down on reminding him that today is the entrance stone monster collapses. Imperial Beast Academy. Z declares that since it has signed a contract and to meet them at the school gate, it must obey. Shortly after, at the entrance, Ning waves and says he finally showed up. He won't hesitate. Some students comment that he's late for such an important event. The rock pet stands up highly of himself just because he passed the higher difficulty, saying that's better. Suddenly, the teacher appears and lightly hits him on the head, a loud crash sleeping in again. He opens the door and sees the burly man very tired, who asks what the hell he's doing at that hour, and if he has any idea what happened to the apartment wall. Ning watches the scene, puzzled by how close the two seem. He was just working. The teacher then addresses the class, saying that everyone there represents the elite. The big man crosses his arms and replies that this isn't the first or second time it's happened, and that the entrance exam for Jiangning for emotional damage academy will be much stricter this time. The protagonist is shocked of them and has given he heard that right. She adds that whether they pass or not, the man confirms and says he wants the money in 3 days, or else he'll deal with him personally. The students shout that moment. The rock pet walks up, raising its fist, making the big man go pale with fear. Why he's been missing. Lin quickly orders it to stop, and the man, thinks he's been so busy with tasks and that he forgot to check his phone, and replies that he apologizes again, explaining that his little brother is still poorly trained, shares that her fierce magic bird has finally considered the debt settled. Asking if that's amazing. The big man, shaking from head to toe, says to forget it. That with that she'll have no trouble bother with such small matters. When they arrive in Jiangning, Ning looks out later that night. The protagonist sleeps peacefully beside his two pets. The protagonist feels embarrassed. The ringing phone wakes him up. When he answers, he hears Guan's voice reminding him that today is the entrance exam for the Jiangning Imperial Beast Academy, and asking if he forgot. Many admire the majestic gate and comment shortly after at the entrance. Ning waves and says studying there would be the peak of their lives. Some students comment that he's late for such an important event, implying he thinks too highly of himself just because he announcing the arrival of 17 students. Suddenly, the teacher appears and lightly hits him on the head, scolding him for sleeping in again. Z explains that he's been very tired lately. One of the girls turns to Ning at least practiced his tells her not to lose to them. Ning smiles at her brother, steps puzzled by how proudly announces that the teacher then addresses the class, saying that everyone there represents the elite among a boy nearby mocks them, Pinghai number 1 high school, country bumpkins, and that the entrance exam for Jiangning more remote Beast Academy will be much stricter. Then a man leaps into the center, introducing himself as Chin He. She adds that whether they pass or not, they'll still be congratulates everyone on completing the test. She'll be waiting for good news. Them not to be overconfident. The students shout that they'll do their best, and the protagonist smiles excitedly. On the bus to the city, a voice asks why he's been missing based on previous replied to messages. The elimination rate reaches 80%, so busy with meaning only 10 candidates will be accepted. And replies a gray-haired boy protests, saying that if that's the case, that's fine, no one shares that Pinghai number 1 magic bird has finally evolved. A girl scolds him for his rude comment, and Guo asks who else thinks they have what it takes to get in. With that, she'll have no trouble with the exam, and admits he's strong. When they arrive in Jiangning, Ning looks out the window, awed by the city's size and beauty. Guo, the protagonist, feels embarrassed when she brushes it off, saying it's nothing. Her chest almost touching, notes that Lin's power is quickly backs away, blushing while the others concludes that he's just a country boy the Imperial Beast Academy. #1's level many admire the majestic gate, nothing to comment on how grand the place looks. Everyone must check in studying there would be the peak of their lives, and wishes them a good rest. Voice asking them to prepare well for the coming exam days. Lee Peng-yun also informs announcing the arrival of 17 provides free meals throughout the test period. Soon after, Guo reports the arrival of 21 so they can enjoy their free time. One of the girls says she's starving. One of the girls turns to Ning, the class leader. They head together to the tells her not to lose to them. The blonde boy smiles at her brother, murmurs that she's really proudly announces that her big chest students from Pinghai #1 high school have come to register, telling him to keep his voice down and not embarrassed, saying they're just country bumpkins. He admits he finds her attractive too. As Pinghai City is far more tells her brother he should eat more, and the protagonist, with a plate of chicken, man leaps into the center, introducing himself as jokes that there's not enough food for two and asks why he doesn't share. He congratulates everyone on completing the test successfully, but warns them not to be overconfident. Guan blushes and tells them to stop joking. Since the Academy's admission difficulty is much higher than that of the Beastmaster that he seems to have even more. He explains that based on previous records, why he's so popular, the elimination rate reaches 80%, meaning only 10 candidates will be accepted. If he can sit, a gray-haired boy protests, saying that if that's the case, the boy introduces himself as Zhou Xiong from Qinping High School. A girl scolds him for his rude comment, and Guo asks who else thinks they have what it takes to high school student. The girl looks at the higher difficulty test and wanted to know if he's here this curiously at the protagonist. Zhang asks why he's curious. Something strange. And Liu comments that if he hasn't even taken the exam yet, he's probably trying to gather information. While Zhou laughs and says Lin's power is he just wants to make friends. Because for ordinary people like him who don't stand out, intelligence is the best trump card to have a chance in the exams. And he's good explains that everyone must check in at the Academy's hotel to stay overnight. Zhou begs them not to be so cold and explains asking them he's not prepare well for the coming the candidates who came. He also informs them that the Academy cafeteria then begins to name free meals throughout the test period. The leader of Qinping that the food is excellent, so they can enjoy their free time. One of the girls says she's starving, and Guan calls her brother to go eat. They head together to the cafeteria. The blonde boy, staring at astonished that a high school that she's really beautiful and that her big chest is unbelievable. He forgot to mention that Lee's family is influential in his voice down and supported him with high-level evolution. He admits he finds her attractive. Sion remarks that he's a wealthy second-generation he should eat more, and the protagonist, rank one full of chicken, no chance against that it's enough. Guan thinks of her own that there's not enough food for two and asks why he doesn't share a bit. Xiao laughs and says he's cute. Zhou continues that the girl with the twin ponytails Guan blushes and tells them to stop joking. Known for being troublesome, notices two girls near Z, despite contracting her first pet only in her third year. The redhead managed to pass the advanced level assessment as handsome as himself. Her pet is a young steel-patterned dragon. Approaches and asks if he can sit with Liu is stunned, saying it's impossible to reach stage 8 of rank 2. The boy introduces himself as Yun suggests perhaps she already had a high-stage pet when she signed the protagonist asks what he wants. Spiritual power is high enough, replies that he heard of Pinghai high stronger creatures directly. Passed the higher difficulty test and wanted to know if he's here this time. Winks. Zhang asks why he's curious. Zhou goes on to say there's another if he hasn't even taken the exam yet, he's probably trying to gather information. Zhou laughs and says no. The two girls gape just wants to make friends, explaining because for ordinary people like him who don't stand out, and intelligence is the best trump card to have a chance making in the exams, them almost impossible to domesticate. Ning stares at him and says if he remembers correctly, the rock phantom Zhou begs her not to be so cold and explains he's not bragging. Concludes that such a combination is worth developing. He knows well who truly has talent. Saying he then begins to name some people and asks if he can speak about the leader of Qinping's the higher difficulty test. Li Pengyun, Liu, a well-known high school student, and Z replies that person didn't come today and no one there knows him. Is a rank 3 venomous ivy says it's fine and Yun's eyes widen. He stands and leaves that a high school the real candidate could be among them, and that they seem to be hiding something. Zhou explains he forgot to mention that Li's family is influential in the region. Liu and supported him with high-level evolution materials. Sion remarks that he's a wealthy second-generation protagonist answers, it's better to be discreet because he doesn't want to become a target so soon. Guan thinks of her own Zhou's information, which is only rank 2. Guan thinks her brother is really clever. They stand and start walking. The girl with the twin ponytails they'll train together that night and mustn't lose to the other known for being troublesome. Guan calls his partner despite contracting her first pet only in her third year. Imagines being managed to pass the advanced level assessment. Suddenly, the gray-haired boy slaps Ning's butt. Her pet is a young steel-patterned dragon. Go to her room later. The boy grins. Liu is stunned, saying it's impossible to reach stage 8 of rank 2 and says it's hot, claiming he likes it. Perhaps she already had a high-stage pet. The protagonist approaches with a cold spiritual power is high enough. Tells him to let go. It's possible to domesticate stronger creatures directly. He'll surely be punished and asks him to glances at the protagonist. The boy says the girls from his school are very beautiful and that Zhou goes on to say there's another notable candidate squarely in the face. Tan Yong, his friends worry about dual element affinity fighting stances. The two girls gape and Guan recalls the teacher explaining that whatever they want about element but asks if they need to threaten his usually live in extremely dangerous areas. And the protagonist states almost impossible to domesticate. Shu releases his mana and if he remembers correctly, the rock phantom but someone grabs his hand and tells him to stop. It's Li Peng and concludes that such a combination is worth developing. Then Li Peng Ning says that punch was quite strong and should count as disregarding the student who passed the protagonist replies that the matter isn't over yet. Asks whom he means, declares that she replies that guy a lesson when she gets back, and no one there knows. If he still has complaints, Joe, sensing the unease, the two glare at each other with killing intent, and he stands and leaves thinking the real candidate could be among them, and that they seem to be hiding something. While Liu leaves cheering that he's by some boys, he murmurs, he'll test that fellow later. Li Peng smiles sinisterly. Liu, thinking that it seems it's him, asks why that night the bathroom is full of foam. Whether it's really the girls are in the bathtub. And Ning asks why they have to squeeze in together. It's better to be discreet because Liu answers that of course it's to thank them for helping during training. And admits Zhou's information might be true. Pets also Guan thinks her brother, which gives them better chances of winning. They stand and start walking. She can give them a massage. Ning says that they'll train together that night and tells her to stop touching the other high school students. Elsewhere, people gather. Guan calls his partner and Chin announces that before anything, he'll give Lin imagines being surrounded based on the analysis of past performances. The gray-haired boy slaps this year's first batch of candidates. They can go to her room later. That the boy they are the worst class of students. Quickly tries to hit him, and no expectations are placed on them. It's hot. Liu asks what's good about that. His friends start laughing. Shu says she's the protagonist approaches with a cold expression, irritated, warns tells him not to let her find him. Ning thinks that if he fights there, he'll surely be punished and asks him to drop it. In the illusion of the origin stone tablet with very no difficulty, all men are weak. And it's called thinking. Lin punches him squarely in the face. He adds that after everyone sits in meditation and enters the illusion, they'll have a scoring panel ready to brawl that increases points. Says they can say whatever they want about him, but asks if they need level 1 beasts are worth 10 points. Are frightened. Level 2, 20 points, he won't let him go unpunished. Higher levels, 40 points. Shu releases his mana. Sometimes you are both the hunter and the prey. But someone grabs his hand and tells him to stop. In the illusion, it's Li Peng who scolds him and orders him not to embarrass everyone. There is also a stone tablet in the center of the secret forest. Then Li Peng says that punch was quite strong and should count as disregarding the score. In fact, there are ranked replies that the matter isn't over yet. Anyone who encounters one will be eliminated instantly when she gets back. The competition lasts 4 hours, and at the end, the 10 candidates with the highest scores will be admitted. The two glare at each other with killing intent, and if they can only eliminate fierce beasts. Lin says he'll see him at the exam. That it's a while good Liu leaves cheering, eliminating other candidates makes the winner receive all of their smiles sinisterly. People are thinking that it seems it's him, saying it's a that night the bathroom is full of them to kill each other. The girls are in the bathtub. Comment that if they unite to hunt down why they have to squeeze in together. School, Liu answers that of course it's to thank them for helping during training. They can now go all out. Comments that their pets also reach the second level, which gives them better chances of winning, saying the real battlefield is far more brutal than this. Guan complains and tells her to stop touching randomly. Elsewhere, he also warns that the first place on the leaderboard will receive the title anything freshman leader, some good news, and many privileges based on the analysis of past performances. And he wants to see who will be the level of this year's first batch of candidates. Leads to the conclusion that she could find her brother. They are the worst even if she doesn't make the top 10, and she no expectations are placed on them. Calls her and tells her that when she enters the illusion, about that news, she should use the flying ability of holding them back. Magic Xian, irritated, warns him not to let her find him after the exam. The teacher explains that the next test will still take place quietly, and in the illusion of the origin stone tablet with no difficulty. Observes the stone tablet and looks at the watch on his arm, which shows 3 hours and 59 minutes remaining. Sits in meditation, the protagonist realizes that the information on the arm have a scoring only shows the current that increases points, not whether he's based in the top 10, meaning everyone will eventually go to the central stone tablet to check the rankings. Making it likely the most dangerous area higher levels, 40 points. The most crucial point is that if he doesn't go to the tablet and just blindly candidate dies in the illusion, even if he's among the top 10, there is also a stone tablet attracting other players, showing the scores and coordinates of the top 10 is to make participants fight each other. There are ranked 3 beasts strong enough, meaning anyone who ignores one will be eliminated points from the strong, and the competition lasts 4 hours, and at the end, the 10 candidates with the highest scores will be admitted. Until an attack approaches, if they can only eliminate level 1, stage 9, and Chin replies that it's automatically activates and eliminating other candidates makes the winner receive all of their points. People are outraged, since it won't consume saying it's a cruel rule that encourages them to kill is summoned, and Lin decides to hide his strength to hunt down rivals using this chance to test the true potential make it to the top 10. See if developing dual attributes they can now go all out. The ghost faces the protagonist and Z orders it to everyone to shut up. Since a rank 1 stage 9 beast is only worth 10 points while having power almost equal to a rank 2 stage 1 now. He also warns that the first place on the leaderboard will receive the title of higher stages within the same rank, and many only a test, he decides to challenge even stronger and fiercer among the new students. The protagonist feels a bit uneasy, wondering whether Guan will be able to find him if she doesn't make the top 10, and hopes everything goes well. Lin calls her and tells her that when she enters the illusion, looking at the watch on her arm and noticing that 3 hours and 45 minutes remain, as quickly as possible and regroup. Guan orders her fierce bird to fly, orders everyone to sit quietly and enter the illusion. A strange sound appears in Guan's eyes, observes the stone tablet and looks at the watch on his arm, which shows 3 hours and 59 minutes too far from their owners. The protagonist realizes that the information on the arm only shows the current score, for him to make it into the top 10. Not whether he's in the top 10. Maybe she can find him through the everyone on the stone tablet. Eventually go to the central stone tablet to check the ranking. Guan notices and jumps aside as the dangerous area in the later stages. After dodging, the most crucial point is that if he golden-backed ostrich is ranked 2, blindly accumulates probably weaker than her fiery magic bird, rank 2, the coordinates will still be displayed, attracting other players' siege. But before she can act, the true purpose of this exam is to make participants fight each other, and as long as they're strong enough, they can completely ignore the rules since no one takes points from the strong, and the weak end up losing stage 4. But Rui says it's quite the coincidence to meet again, and until an attack approaches, if he doesn't find it shameful to steal level 1, stage 9. Shu replies that the rules don't forbid it, and that he doesn't plan to just steal kills, but for safety, ordering Odo to defeat the bird. Odo lunges forward. Ning shouts for her bird to dodge. The rock goes to boomerang grazes and Lin decides to hide his strength behind her, covers her mouth, and says she dodged well. But now she can't give commands to her fiery magic bird anymore. Unlike ordinary beasts, the ghost humanoid pythons possess higher intelligence to stop and can act of their own will. Since a rank 1 stage 9 beast is only worth 10 points, while having grabs the bird's wings, and Shu comments that before eliminating her, he'll enjoy the situation a bit, making it a major disadvantage to eliminate higher stages within the same time. Since he has only a test, he decides to challenge even stronger and fiercer creatures. Lin notices something, feels and the system notifies him, wondering whether a big-mouthed will be able to find him is devouring and hopes everything goes well. Xiang observes and says those Ning is with her beast, so they shouldn't hold back. Looking at the watch on her arm and noticing that someone 3 hours and 45 minutes remain, Xiang recognizes 30 points, saying they met at the cafe. Guan orders her protagonist confirms, thinking that guy Ning wonders where her brother doesn't know his identity. A strange sound echoes, he holds a lot of information, perhaps he can take advantage of it. The forest warriors Xiang looks at the creature and says Ning thinks it's amazing, since asking if it's stray too far from their owners, it's best to take her chances. He thinks that this boy, with her brother's strength, who cleared the higher difficulty, it shouldn't be hard for him to make it into the top 10. To reports, maybe she can find him through the coordinates on the stone tablet. Lin replies that his ostrich appears from behind. Just an ordinary notices and jumps aside as the bird charges forward. Joe remarks after dodging, he must take a closer look at that big mouth. That the golden-backed ostrich is rank 2, already upgraded to rank 2, probably weaker than her fiery magic bird. praises him, and Xiang proposes a partnership, saying that if they work together, he guarantees they'll make it into the top 10. The protagonist happily agrees, thinking it's perfect, and sees only a boomerang a fool. It's willing to help him rack up points by his pet Odo, and once he's no longer humanoid-type beast, he'll just eliminate him and take them all. Rui says in the forest, Guan grabs Shu's arm and slams him to the ground. Guan asks if he doesn't find it shameful to steal kills. Eyes widening as he senses the rules don't forbid it, and that he doesn't plan to just steal kills, her brother acted before she could, ordering Odo to defeat the bird. She'll let him go so easily. Odo lunges forward. The fiery magic bird unleashes for her bird to dodge, and Zhu screams for grazes past. But Odo trembles before the bird's crushing covers her mouth and says she dodged well. But now she can't give commands to her fiery magic bird anymore. Unlike ordinary beasts, and Guan comments that it seems the creature has a will of its own, which can act of their own will, using the enemy's commands as that she not hit where her brother did grabs the bird's wings. Moments later, in comments that before eliminating her, he'll enjoy the situation. Ning checks her score elsewhere and notices her points have increased. Checks the remaining time. Zhu's points have 40 added to hers. The rock ghost on the ranking board taken down in first place. Lin notices something, and the system notifies him that a big-mouthed monster. The teacher observes and thinks that contrary to his expectations, this Xiang observes and says isn't so bad. Within less than an hour, someone already surpassed 60 points when someone calls out to him. In the middle of the forest, and Xiang comes across a striped tiger, saying they met at the cafe. A fierce beast. The protagonist confirms, thinking that guy probably still stands beside his pet. Identity. A poisonous ivy holds a lot of information. Perhaps he can take advantage of it. Stage 3. Xiang tiger charges to attack, but the demon reacts first, launching its tendrils. A rare beast. The tiger lifts it and tries to swallow it whole, but he thinks that this tells her beast to stop playing around. It's time for the next match. Since, according to reports, the tiger's eyes widen as it senses an abnormal energy, and it instantly bursts into a cloud of blood. Just an ordinary demon completely annihilated it with a single strike. Joe remarks that over the beast's body, the demon releases another surge of energy, ending the hunt. And already upgraded to rank 2, stage 7. As his points rises him, and Xiang proposes a partnership. On the scoreboard, the positions remain unchanged. If they work together, and the remaining time drops to 2 hours and top 39 minutes. The protagonist happily agrees, thinking it's perfect, while Joe thinks the boy's a fool. Shin complains that he gave up to help him rack up points along the way, and once he's no longer useful, wondering he'll just eliminate him. And Yang replies that all they have to do is hunt the people on the list. Guan grabs Shu's arm and slams him to the ground. He asks who they should start with, and Tan says that eyes widening as he senses her overwhelming energy. So it's better to target. Ning says that last time her brother acted before she could. And asks if he thinks she'll let him go so easily. Notice the fiery magic bird unleashes mana toward Odo, and comments that the so-called but Odo trembles before the bird's crushing energy with an empty reputation, and tells them yells for the beast to come back. But Odo doesn't even listen. In the eastern part of the forest, running away in flies on her bird, and Guan comments that it seems the creature has a will of its own, which to the right, never a man-eating plant. Desperate, she wonders which way to go to find her brother. Not hit where her brother did last time. Moments later, in the same place, Rui lets out a scream of pain. They spot a living sapling. Checks her score panel and notices her points have increased. Joe says to leave it to him, realizing promises to help later, added to hers. Secretly planning to steal the ranking board, Liepeng is in first place, all the points once the other is about win. Third, the rock ghost rushes forward and crushes the sapling. The teacher observes and thinks that contrary to his expectations, embarrassment and frustration isn't so bad. Unable to believe it was over less than an hour. The remaining time shows 2 hours and 20 minutes. And Lin now appears in ninth place. Yun walks and comes across the striped thinking that Ze is the boy who supposedly passed the highest difficulty test. Li Peng stands beside his 33rd to 9th, poisonous ivy demon, plant type. Makes sense. Rank 3, he's clearly working in a duo. The tiger charges to attack, but complains that they agreed he'd attack first and not be left empty-handed. The tiger lifts it and tries to swallow it whole, but the protagonist apologizes, stop playing around, explaining that since the exam directly affects suddenly the tiger's eyes widen. He always commands his ghost to fight energy and it instantly bursts into a cloud of blood. He adds that if the other wants points too, the next one annihilated it with a single strike. Joe thinks the boy's stepping over the beast's body, the demon releases in the end, he'll be the one laughing after killing him and taking his points. And Li Peng smiles in satisfaction. The system alerts that a rare point has been detected in the current area. On the scoreboard, the positions remain unchanged, more points, and the remaining time drops until they come across a massive tree trunk. Tan remarks that, as expected, saying it's a genuine golden tree and must be worth tons of points. Shin complains that he gave up all the fierce suddenly something grabs him and still has roots coil tightly around his body, revealing a grotesque face. Yang replies that all they have to do is hunt the people on the list to earn enough points. Joe identifies it and orders his pet to attack to save it. Tan says that Li Peng big-mouthed beast also gets ensnared by the roots, so it's better to target Lu's gang from their own energy draining rapidly and yells at his partner not to just stand there and help him, but Ze notices his name doesn't appear on the board. Beast would be Young comments Joe that this so-called talent isn't like probably just cheated somehow. A guy with an empty protagonist replies and tells him to move out, saying he trusts himself and will handle it alone. In the eastern part of the forest, Ning flies on her bird and begging for help. To the left, and there's a wind-cutting mantis, but asks what he'll offer in return. To the right, a man-eating Joe fumes inside. She wonders which way to go to find her brother. Meanwhile, swearing that once he's saved, the protagonist will pay dearly. Out loud, he says he has valuable information about the others and will share it if he helps him now. Joe says to leave it to him and says he'll consider it later and tells him to speak secretly, planning to steal the final blow. In a panic, Xiong yells that it's about the unique soul techniques of Li Peng Yun, and the rock ghost rushes forward and crushes the sapling with a single punch. The protagonist grows curious. Xiong freezes, torn between embarrassment could it be related to soul wheel and enhancement abilities? Over in one that's valuable. The remaining time shows 2 hours and 20 minutes to use the crushing blow aim on the creature's abdomen. Chin watches the ghost charges, thinking that the golden tree is the boy who supposedly passed the highest through several of them and goes jumping from 33rd to 9th in less than 2 hours. Binding it tightly. Makes sense. Lin realizes he's clearly working in a stage 9 beast still facing a golden rank that they agreed stage 9 monster first and not be left empty-handed. He can't break it by force. Share some of the points. His only choice is to secretly summon the Snow Maiden and explaining that since the exam directly affects Academy and shouts, he always commands his ghost to fight at full strength in every battle. The tree retaliates by unleashing even more roots, wrapping them tightly around the Joe thinks the boy's getting a bright light flashes and that in the end he'll be the one laughing after killing him and taking his points. The teacher watching the scoreboard, the system alerts that a rare point has been detected in the current area. The highest difficulty test. Lin wonders if rare means more points. In the forest, the rock ghost move ahead until they come across a massive tree from the binding. Xiong is impressed, saying it's a genuine golden tree and must be worth tons of points. The protagonist suddenly something grabs attribute roots coil tightly around his body, revealing wants to see how far this one can go. It's a dried the tree roars and sends out new roots, but stage 4. Useless. Joe identifies it and orders his pet to attack to form, ignores big mouth physical attacks also gets no material body. It's invulnerable and spiritual energy draining rapidly. He commands yells at his stone bullet throw, aim for the eyes and the stomach. Ze reminds channels energy and fires the attack, hitting hard, knocking the golden tree down and freeing Xiong and his pet. However, Lin notices that even with that much damage, the protagonist not to interfere, saying he trusts himself wasn't enough to finish the creature. Joe yells for him to run and asks why he's begging for help, thinking that if the boy dies, all those points will go to waste. Joe looks back in the tree, wondering how he dares to ready to swallow everything, swearing that once he's saved, that kid will pay dearly. Floating out loud, he says he has valuable information about the others and will share it if he helps him. The rock ghost reappears and he'll consider it and tells him to speak quickly. In a panic, Xiong yells that it's about the unique soul techniques of dodging every counterattack. Lin shouts that it's not over yet and orders a thorn. The protagonist grows curious. Strike pierces through the trunk, shattering the golden tree. Could it be related to soul wheel enhancement abilities? That's valuable intel. And displays the rock ghost ghost to use the crushing blow aim. Lin analyzes and understands. The ghost charges, phantom form, the golden tree raises its roots and consumes more energy. It slices through several of them and goes for the ability leveled up twist back together, binding it tightly of the king. Lin realizes his rank 2 stage 9 beast is facing a golden rank 3 stage 9 monster with 1 hour and 20 minutes remaining. The teacher's only choice is to secretly summon the Snow Maiden, especially because of the new ice pet. Z watches the ghost trembling and shouts, "That's a beast with divine potential," asking if that's all it's got. He wonders how that boy managed to obtain something like it. The tree retaliates by unleashing even more roots, wrapping them tightly around the stone ghost's body. A lot of points. Bright light flashes and Xiong, no reason to hide anymore, screams that he's being completely drained. The teacher watching the scoreboard wonders what kind of power that boy who
wanting
passed
to know
the
if
highest
she's a
difficulty
candidate
test
and from which
truly
school.
possesses.
Lin realizes he forgot to conceal the snow
cloud of
and that he
smoke
can't keep
breaks
pretending
free
now.
from the bindings,
Joe,
revealing
confused,
its
says he
phantom form.
doesn't understand
Lin
what's
is
going
stunned,
on,
and
she looks like a humanoid ice
The
beast.
protagonist
And
realizes
she's
that
the one who
dual
defeated the
attribute
golden
form
tree.
brings special
So if she's
abilities
also a
and
fierce
wants to see
beast,
how far this
why
one
would
can
she
go.
fight another?
The tree
Or is she the
roars and
pet of
sends
someone
out new
nearby?
roots, but
He concludes that
now
it makes
they're
no
useless.
sense.
Z sees
Terrified,
that the rock
Xiong
ghost
asks if her
in its
master
phantom
might be the
form
legendary
ignores
Lin,
all
and
physical
says that
attacks
if
since it
he's
has
the one
no
who took down the
material
golden
body,
beast,
it's
then his
invulnerable
strength
and even
surpasses
stronger.
theirs.
He
And they'll
commands
surely be
use
next to
stone
be
bullet
eliminated.
throw, aim for
Za,
the eyes
a
and the
bit
stomach,
nervous, orders
the
through
ghost
the
channels
system for the
energy
snow
and
maiden
fires
to
the
pretend to
attack,
attack
hitting
them.
hard.
The ice
knocking
spirit
the
looks
golden tree
confused
down
but
and
obeys,
freeing
and
Xiong and
Xiong
his pet,
retreats. However,
trembling,
Lin notices
saying she's
that
watching
even with
them.
that much
Ice
damage,
shards
the
shoot
level
forward,
gap is
and
still
Joe
too
panics,
great.
shouting
attack
that
wasn't
they're
enough
really
to
going
finish
to
the
attack,
creature.
thinking
Joe
that if
yells
both
for him
of
to
them die
run
here,
and asks why
it'll
he's
be a
just
huge
standing there.
loss.
Thinking
In
that
his
if the
mind, he
boy
decides
dies
that if he
all
gets
those
the chance,
points,
will go to
he'll
waste.
kill the boy
Lin
beside
looks
him and
back
then
in the
escape.
tree, opens
In
a
the blink of an
monstrous
eye, his
mouth,
pet
ready to
swallows
swallow
the protagonist
everything.
whole.
Z calls
Confused,
forth the
Lin
snow
wonders
maiden,
why it swallowed
who
him.
appears floating
Xiong
in a
awkwardly
cold,
tries to cover it
radiant
up,
glow,
saying
the
it was
ice spirit
obviously to
unleashes
protect him.
freezing
The
blasts while the
protagonist,
rock
sharp
ghost
as ever,
reappears in
tells his
solid
beast that
form
everything's
and
fine
lands
now
a
and
crushing
orders them
blow.
to stand down.
The maiden keeps
Joe,
firing ice,
sweating and
the
exhausted,
ghost switches
breathes
forms,
a sigh
dodging
of
every
relief,
counterattack.
thinking he barely
Lin
escaped
shouts that it's
gained
not over
points
yet and orders
and
a
should be
thorn
safe now,
impact,
and asks
the
if Lin's
strike
okay.
pierces through the trunk,
Inside the
shattering
barrier,
the golden
Lin
tree
replies
into pieces.
sarcastically,
The system
asking what
confirms
could
the golden
possibly
beast's
happen to him
elimination
and if he can come out
displays
now.
the rock ghost's
Xiong tells him to
updated
wait,
stats,
saying something
Lin
is still
analyzes
chasing them
and
from
understands,
behind. And
the
knowing
phantom
that the
form
creature
doubles
hasn't
its
digested
combat
him,
power and
suddenly
consumes
the
more
big
energy,
mouth
but
beast
the
spits
trade-off
Lin
is
out.
worth it.
Joe,
The
startled,
ability
leveled
leveled
up
up
mid-battle,
and the protagonist
truly
jokes
worthy of
that
the
maybe it
king
was
class
indigestion.
path. He
Adding
smiles,
that he figured
calling
if
it
the
a great
creature kept
victory.
chasing,
His
they
score
could
climbs
team
to
up to defeat it.
180 points.
Xiong thinks he's
with
a complete
1 hour
idiot.
and 20
Lin
minutes
comments
remaining.
that there
The
doesn't
teacher,
seem to be
seeing the
any
data,
more
is in
danger,
disbelief
and asks if he'll now
especially
talk about
because
the
of the new
exclusive
ice
spirit
pet
that
technique.
appeared.
Joe
If he's
says
not
they should
mistaken,
first head to the
that's a
stone
beast
monument
with
to see if
divine
there was
potential.
in the top 10
And he wonders how that boy
managed
managed
to
to
obtain
obtain
something
something
like it.
Xiong explains
In the
that
forest,
what they call
Lin
an
thinks that
exclusive
rare
spirit
rank
technique
3 beasts
is actually a
yield
unique
lot of
ability that
points,
only a few
and
beast
that there's
masters
no
with
reason to
extreme
hide
talent
anymore.
can awaken.
Xiong
It's a
approaches,
spiritual technique
shocked,
impossible
asking
to
if he
learn from
really
books,
defeated that
as it
creature
depends on
and
the
who the
beast
woman
master's
beside
own
him is.
physical
Wanting to know
constitution.
if she's a
And
candidate
because
and
it's so
from
rare,
which few
school,
teachers even know about
Lin
it.
realizes
Lin
he
asks
forgot
what the
to conceal
exclusive
the
techniques of
snow
Guo
maiden,
and that he
Li Peng
can't
are.
keep pretending
Xiong
now.
points ahead, saying
Joe,
the scoring
confused,
monument
says
is
he
right
doesn't
there.
understand
On
what's
the board,
going on.
Liping leads,
She looks like
Guo
a
is in
humanoid
second,
ice
and
beast,
Lin appears in
and
fifth.
she's the
Joe
one who
comments
defeated the
that
golden
dies.
tree.
It's
So if
as
she's
he
also a
expected.
fierce
His
beast,
name isn't at the top
why
yet,
would she
but
fight
with
another?
1 hour
Or is she
remaining
the
and
pet
the
of
10th
someone
place
nearby?
only having 100
He concludes
points?
that it makes
He
no
can still
sense.
catch up.
Terrified,
Xiong calls
Xiong
out to
asks
him
if
the
the
master
master
might
might
be
be
the
the
legendary
legendary
Lin,
Lin, and says that if
180
he's the one
points.
who took
He
down
can
the
barely
golden
believe
beast,
that
then
kid
his
has that
strength
many.
surpasses
Ze's
theirs.
name jumps to
and they'll
fourth
surely
place,
be next
and
to
Joe
be
asks what his name is.
Za,
Lin
a bit
calmly
nervous,
replies,
orders through the
and
system
Xiong,
for the snow maiden
suspicious,
to pretend to
remembers
attack
that
them.
anyone
The
who
ice
passes
spirit
the
looks
higher
confused
difficulty
but
test
obeys,
can have
and
two
Xiong
pets.
retreats,
That
trembling,
boy hit
saying
his
she's
power the
watching them.
entire time.
Ice shards
And
shoot
that
forward,
ice
and
beast
Joe
was
panics,
his too,
shouting that
now
they're
he
really
can
going to
only think of
attack,
one
thinking
thing,
that if both of them
defeating
die
him.
here, Lin
It'll
meets
be a
his
huge
gaze and
loss.
reminds him that
In his
if it
mind, he
weren't for
decides
him,
that if he gets
he'd
the
have been
chance,
eliminated
he'll
by
kill
the
the boy
dried
beside
golden
him and then
beast,
escape.
demanding
In the
that
blink
he
of an
keep his
eye, his
promise
pet
and
swallows
swallows
the
the
protagonist
protagonist
whole.
whole.
Joe refuses,
Confused,
telling
Lin
him
wonders
not to
why it
dream of it
swallowed
and
him.
orders his
Xiong
big-mouthed
awkwardly
beast
tries to
crush
cover
him.
it up. The stone
saying
ghost
it was
charges,
obviously
the
to
snow
protect
maiden is
him.
summoned,
The
and takes an
protagonist,
offensive
sharp
stance.
as ever,
And
tells his
Xiong
beast
collapses
that
to the
everything's
ground in
fine
fear,
now and
Lin
orders them to
coldly
stand
says
down.
that
Joe,
even if his points
sweating
aren't
and
many,
exhausted,
they're still worth
breathes
as
a
much
sigh of
as a
relief,
rare rank
thinking
3
he
beast.
barely
So he'll
escaped,
gladly
gained
take them.
points,
Joe
and
screams
should be
in
safe
desperation
now,
and
begging
asks
to be
if Lin's
spared and
okay.
promising to talk.
Inside the
But Lin
barrier,
smiles
Lin
and says replies sarcastically, asking whatever possibly happened to him and if he can come out now.
To him, since
Xiong
none
tells
of
him
them
to
are
wait,
equal.
saying something
Xiong
is still
asks what he
chasing them
means
from
by
behind,
equal,
and
and
noting
Lin
that the
thinks that
creature
none
has
of them
them
can compare
compared
to
to
him.
him.
Suddenly,
He orders
the
the
big
snow
mouth
maiden to
dude
attack.
spits Lin
Joe
out.
screams,
Joe,
but startled,
before the
asks
strike
how he got
lands,
out.
and the protagonist
energy
jokes that
pierces
maybe
through
it was
him.
indigestion,
Li Peng appears,
adding that he
striking him down and saying he's been waiting for
they
Ze
could
for a
team
long
up to
time.
defeat it.
Xiong shouts for him to watch out for the ice beast.
Lin
comments
thinks
that there
he
doesn't
hadn't
seem to be
expected
any
to run
more
into that
danger,
guy here,
and
but
asks
it
if he'll
seems
now
it's
time to
about the
settle what was
exclusive
left
spirit
unfinished.
technique.
Joe
Yoon
says they
smiles
should
and says
first
he can
head to
rest
the
in
stone
peace now.
monument to see if
Joe
there was
collapsed,
top
mutters
10
that his
talks
points were
along the
stolen
way
by the boss,
as they walk,
and
Xiong
that at least it
explains
wasn't
that
what
they
complete
call an
loss.
exclusive
Smoke
spirit
spreads,
technique,
and
is
Xiong
actually a
vanishes
unique
within it.
ability
Li
that
Peng
only
now has
430
with
points.
extreme talent
Yoon faces him and tells him to show his true power, saying she'll prove who deserves first place among the new students.
on the Beastmaster's
Lin replies
own
that he's
physical
not
constitution.
interested in the
And
title of
because
best
it's so
freshman.
rare, a few
If he
teachers
wants
even know
he can
about
have
it.
it. Li Peng
asks what the
laughs and says that
techniques of
sounds like
Guo and
admitting
Li Peng
defeat.
are,
That
he
he
didn't
didn't
expect
expect
him to
being
be
the
such a
scoring
coward
monument
and
vows
vows
that
that
after
after
defeating
on
him
the board,
he'll
Li Peng
wipe out
leads,
everyone
Guo
else
isn't
at the
second.
top. And Lin
Guo,
appears
Tan,
in fifth.
Lu, and
Joe
Guan,
comments that
no
no
one
one
will
will
escape.
escape. It's
He
as
says
he
the
expected.
pleasure of destroying
His
them
name
all
isn't
is
at the top
addictive.
yet.
Lin
But with 1
immediately
hour
thinks
remaining
of
and the
Guan,
10th place
Tan,
only
and
having
Guo,
100 points,
realizing
he
Ning
can
is
still
in
catch
danger.
up. and
Xiong calls out to him, then widens his eyes as he sees the numbers
and yells for her demon to block him.
180 points.
The creature lunges forward, sending out vines that wrap around the stone
name
ghost.
jumps to fourth
Z
place,
raises his shield,
and Zhou
the demon
asks what his
coils
name
around the
is.
barrier, trying
Lin
to crush
calmly
it.
replies,
Li Peng laughs
and Xiong,
mockingly,
suspicious,
saying it's easier
remembers
than he
that
thought.
anyone who
Calling
passes
him
the
a
higher
clown with
difficulty
nothing but a
test
name.
can have
Yun
two
orders
pets.
the demon to drain
That boy
all his
hid his
energy
power
and
the
taunts him
entire
to try
time.
running again
And
if he
that
dares.
ice beast
The protagonist
was his
mutters
too.
in annoyance that
Now
he doesn't
can
have
only
time
think
to
of
play
one
games.
thing.
The Snow Maiden
defeating
is
him.
summoned.
Lin
Li Peng
Peng
barely has time to react
if
before he's
it weren't for
completely
him,
frozen.
he'd have
The
been
demon tries to
eliminated
strike
by the
back, but is
dried
frozen
golden
solid
beast,
too,
demanding
rock
that he
ghost
keep his
emerges
promise
right
and
after,
reveal what he
shattering
knows.
the ice and
Zhou
crushing the
refuses,
creature.
telling
Lin
him not to
repeats
dream of
coldly
it
that
and
he
orders
orders
his
his
big
big
mouth
doesn't have
beast to
time for
crush him.
games.
The stone
ice
ghost
begins to
charges,
melt, but
the snow maiden
demon is already reduced
in
to defensive
fragments.
stance.
At
that
Xiong
moment, a
collapses
blonde
to
young
the
man
ground in
appears,
fear.
watching the scene,
Lin coldly
remarking
says
that the man's
that even if his
vitality
points
is
aren't
impressive,
many,
they're
even
still
after all
worth
that,
as
he
much
still
as a
isn't
rare rank
finished.
3 beast.
He smiles and
So
quotes
he'll
a
gladly
proverb.
take them.
Like a
Zhou
sculptor
screams in
carving wood, the
desperation,
grasshopper
begging to be
catches the
spared
cricket,
and promising
but
to
the
talk,
sparrow waits
but Lin
behind,
smiles and says
saying
he's
the boy
changed his
forgot to
mind.
finish the fight.
After
He
all,
decides
whatever
to seize the
exclusive
golden
spirit techniques they have
It's
are
Lugong
useless to
from
him
the rival
since
group.
none of them
He
are his
declares that
equal.
from now on,
Xiong
asks
asks
what he means by
equal.
equals.
And
His
Lin
pet
thinks
is an
that none of them
iron-armored
can
dragon,
compare to him.
rank 2,
He orders the
stage
Snow
9,
Maiden to attack,
and Lu orders it to
Zhou
attack
screams,
Yun directly.
but before the
He figures
strike lands,
Li Peng's beast
a blast
of
of
energy
ability
pierces through
so,
him.
to avoid
Li Peng
risks,
appears,
he must
striking
eliminate
him
the
down
master
and saying
first.
he's been
The
waiting
dragon
for Zhou
charges
for a
and
long
strikes
time.
Li Peng's frozen
Xiong
body,
shouts
and
for him
Lu
to watch
remarks
out for
that
the ice beast.
after all,
And
luck
Lin
is
thinks
also a
he
form
hadn't
of strength.
expected to run
Looking
into
at
that
the
guy
panel on
here,
his arm,
but
he's
it seems
puzzled
that
that his
his
points
points haven't
haven't
increased
increased
until
he
he
feels
feels
something
something
behind him.
Yun smiles
Before
and
he
says
can
he
react,
rest
he's
in peace
violently
now.
struck.
Zhou
Li Peng is
collapsed,
alive,
mutters that his
having
points were
fused
stolen
with the
by the
body of his
boss,
own demon,
and that at
Lu,
least it
confused,
wasn't a
shouts in
complete
disbelief,
loss.
demanding
Smoke
to know
spreads,
what's happening.
and Xiong
Yun
vanishes
replies
within.
coldly that this is
Li
his
Peng now
exclusive
has
spiritual
430
technique.
points.
Synchronized
Yun
mimicry.
faces him and
Lu
tells him to
orders
show
his
his
dragon
true
to
power,
attack,
saying
but the
she'll
demon,
prove who
now
deserves
under
first
Li Peng's
place among the
control,
new students.
has already
Lin
overpowered
replies
it
that
and
he's
begins
not
tearing it
interested
apart.
in the title of best
Meanwhile,
freshman.
Lin moves
If he
swiftly
wants
through
it,
the
he
trees,
can have it.
thinking
Li
that
Peng
if
laughs
Guo or
and says
Tan
that
dare
sounds
lay a
like
hand on
admitting
his sister,
defeat.
none
He
of them
didn't
will
expect
leave
him to be
alive.
such a
On the other
coward
side of the
and vows
forest,
that
three
after
people
defeating
watch.
him,
Jin
he'll
with
wipe
his
out
young
everyone
steel
else
scale
at the top.
dragon, rank 2,
Guo, Tan,
stage 8,
Lu, and
Guan trapped inside
no
a
one
water
will
barrier.
escape.
And
He says the
beside
pleasure
her
of
with his
destroying them all is
necromancer beast,
addictive.
rank 3,
Lin immediately
stage 2,
thinks of
a
Guan,
water-type
Tan,
ghost
and Guo.
spirit.
Realizing
comments
Ming
that
is
the
in danger
necromancer's water
and rushes
prison can't be
eastward.
broken
Yun
from
sees
within,
his movement,
and that if they
and
leave
yells
her
for her
trapped
demon to
there,
block him.
they can
The
take
creature
Guan's
lunges
points,
forward, sending
giving
out
the
vines
necromancer
that
the
wrap
chance to
around the
become the
stone
new
ghost.
class leader.
Z raises his
teaches,
shield, and the demon
asking
coils
if it's
around the
because
barrier
girl's
trying
too
to
pretty,
crush it,
and he can't
Li
bring
Peng
himself to
laughs
attack her.
mockingly,
But Tan
saying
answers
it's
coldly
easier
that
than
he
he
has
thought,
no interest
calling
in
him a
other
clown
women.
with
Jin
nothing but a
suggests
name.
patience,
Yun
saying they should
orders
wait
the
a little
demon to
longer
drain
before making
all
a
his
move.
energy, and
Yang
taunts him to
asks
try
what they're
running
waiting
again if
for,
he dares.
and Yi thinks they're
The
just
protagonist
waiting for the
mutters in
big fish
annoyance
to
that he
take the
doesn't
bait.
have time
A
to
sound
play
cuts
games.
through the air.
The
Something
Snow Maiden
approaches
is
fast.
summoned.
Li
Tan
Peng
reacts
barely has
immediately,
time to react
activating
before
his
he's
water shield
completely
as the young
frozen.
dragon
The demon
counterattacks.
tries to strike back,
Lin
but is
bursts
frozen
into
solid
view,
too.
shouting their
And
names
the rock
and
ghost
demanding their
emerges
release
right
Guan
after,
at once,
shattering the
Jin
ice
widens
and
his
crushing
eyes
the
upon
creature.
seeing two beasts
Lin
at Lin's
repeats
side
coldly
and
that he already
Guan
said
still
he doesn't
trapped,
have
is
time
shocked,
for games.
but quickly
The ice begins to
refocuses,
melt, but
warning him to
the
be
demon is
careful
already
since the
reduced
enemies are
to
strong.
fragments.
Lin assures
At that
her he'll
moment, a
save her
blonde
right
young
now.
man appears,
Yang
watching
asks
the
if he's
scene,
the guy who passed
remarking
the
that the
super
man's
difficulty test,
vitality
and he
is
confirms,
impressive,
saying
even
it makes
after all
sense.
that, he
She
still
sensed something
isn't
unusual
finished.
about him
He
from the
smiles
start.
and quotes a
Tan
proverb
remarks that they'll
like
see
a
how strong
sculptor
he really is
carving
once they
wood, the
fight him.
grasshopper
She
catches the
warns that
cricket,
this
but
man
the sparrow
isn't
waits
ordinary.
behind.
Yang
Saying
declares
the
that
boy
if they
forgot to
defeat
finish
him
the
and
fight,
take
he
his
decides
points,
to seize the
they'll be
golden
the new
opportunity.
class leaders,
It's
and if they
Lugong
lose
from the rival
they'll just
group.
collect
He
what's
declares
left
that from
afterward.
now on,
Tan
Li
orders
Peng's
his
points will be
necromancer to
his.
trap him.
His
And the
pet
creature
is an iron
summons a
armored
prison
dragon
of water
rank
around
2,
him.
stage
Z
9,
moves his hand,
and Lu
releasing a
orders it it to attack Yun directly. Tan's eyes widen in shock might have a revival ability.
The rock Goso
charges
to avoid risks,
but Yang
he
raises
must
a water
eliminate
pillar,
the master
trapping
first.
it again.
The dragon
inside
charges
prison,
and strikes
shouting
Liu
for
Peng's
everyone to
body,
focus
and
on
Lu
one
remarks
target
that,
first.
after all,
Lin
luck is
activates the
also
ghost
a form
spirit
of
form,
strength.
allowing his beast
Looking
to
at the
break
panel
free.
on his arm,
He's
he's puzzled that his
Earth
points
spike
haven't
toward the
increased
enemies.
until he feels
The
something
necromancer
behind
responds
him.
by
Before
shifting
he
into
can
its
react, he's
spiritual form
violently
as well.
struck.
Tan
Lai Peng
laughs,
is
saying
alive,
his necromancer
having
is
fused
also
with the
a
body of his
ghost-type
own
spirit,
demon.
immune
Lu,
to physical
confused,
attacks.
shouts in
Shin
disbelief,
warns him to look
demanding to
behind,
know what's
and Yang
happening.
is struck by a
Yun
direct
replies
blow.
coldly that this is
Stone
his
ghost
exclusive
approaches,
spiritual
spiritual
technique.
clone.
Synchronized
Lin
mimicry.
remarks it's a pity.
Lu orders
They
his
aren't
dragon to
immune
attack,
to
but the
spiritual
demon,
attacks.
now under Li Peng's
Enraged,
control,
Tan orders
has
the
already
necromancer to use
overpowered it and
spirit
begins
seal of
tearing it
termination.
apart. The seal
Meanwhile,
activates
Lin
with a
moves
deafening
swiftly
hum,
through the
and
trees,
Z frowns,
thinking that if
this guy is
Guo or
really
Tan
annoying.
dare lay a
He
hand on
commands
his
the snow
sister,
maiden to
none
join
of
the
them
fight
will
and
leave
orders the
alive.
necromancer
On the other
to
side of the
revert to
forest,
its
3
normal
people
form
watch.
or be destroyed.
Jin with his
Young
young
laughs
steel
arrogantly,
scale dragon,
saying,
so
rank 2,
this is
stage
the
8,
genius everyone
Guan
talks
trapped
about.
inside a
And
water
that's
barrier,
all he's got.
and Tan beside
The
her,
protagonist
with his
tells her to
necromancer
shut up and
beast
says
rank
now
3,
he'll show
stage
his true
2,
power.
a
Shin's
water-type
eyes widen
ghost
as a
spirit.
brilliant light
Yang
bursts
comments
forth,
that the
and Yi
necromancer's
remarks that
water
this man
prison can't be
clearly
broken
isn't
from
someone they
within,
can handle,
and that if they
keep
leave
fighting,
her
they'll be
trapped
eliminated. they can take her to wait points. Maybe giving the necromancer the chance to become the new class leader. And Yi nods, saying they'll all make it into the top 10 too pretty, so there's no reason bring himself to attack her. They'll soon be classmates. Tan answers coldly. The Snow Maiden raises her hand to strike, and Shin orders his partner to free the girl, saying they should wait a little longer. Tan warns that if they're allowed to join forces, asks things what they're waiting even worse, and Yi thinks they're just waiting for the big fish to take the bait, saying fine. Sound cuts through the air. Something approaches the water prison. Tan reacts along with her bird, activating her water shield as the young dragon counterattacks. tells her not to worry. Lin bursts into view, shouting their names and demanding they release Guan, adds that even if they're eliminated, Shin widens his eyes upon seeing two beasts at Lin's side doesn't satisfy Guan still trapped, grows irritated, saying everyone's ganging up on him. Warning him to be careful since the enemies are strong. An exclusive spiritual Lin assures her he'll save her right sensitivity now. To help Yang asks if he's the guy who passed the super difficulty test. The protagonist admits that's a very tempting saying it makes sense. Yang protests something unusual about to help that fool. But then Tan notices something in his eyes is once they fight. He smiles. Shin a voice declares that they should count him in ordinary. Lin realizes the other one is still alive and take his point. States that everyone has gathered at the perfect moment. If they lose, now he can get rid of them all left afterward. Yang orders his necromancer to trap him. This is starting to summons a prison of water. Shin suggests they join forces to claim moves his hand, releasing a soul force situation is getting out of control. Tan's eyes widen in shock at its power. The professor, fearing the loss of potential talents, but Yang raises a water pillar and gives them trapping it again inside the prison. Yang asks if his partner is everyone to help focus on one target using leaping to hold him back. Lin activates the ghost spirit form, allowing his beast to break free, saying she really wants to launch an earthen spike. Speculates that maybe the girl has a necromancer response, promising to get to its spiritual form as well. Yoon orders them to fight already, saying his voice interrupts, saying there's also no need to fight anymore. They've been accepted, but will face a special challenging mission. Yang is struck by a direct flow. 4 people step out along with the other adventurers, creating a spiritual clone. A voice explains, and Lin remarks their abilities far surpass those of the new recruits, spiritual attacks, and that they must now show their limits. Tan orders the necromancer to use are second-year students of intermediate level. The seal activates with a deafening hum. If any freshman wins, they'll receive a unique this guy is really annoying. If they lose, their commands the Snow Maiden to join the fight and orders the necromancer to revert to its normal form and reminds them. Yang laughs arrogantly, saying, "So this is the genius everyone talks about." The protagonist calls for everyone to come to him. The protagonist tells him to shut up. Couldn't eliminate now. He'll show his true power. They'll be classmates soon and Shin's eyes widen as a brilliant light bursts forth. Tan curses him and Yi remarks they should first survive the match against someone they can handle. Shin asks if their allies now be eliminated. While Shin tells her to wait a moment. Lin thinks about the baptism reward. Lin asks, it boosts both physical strength and soul power, saying they'll all make it into the top 10 anyway, against 5 freshmen, no reason to probably underestimating. They'll soon be classmates. And says that if Yi wants to ally with her hand to strike, she'll have to join his partner to face the girl immediately. Years together. Tan warns that if they're allowed to join forces, things will get places his hand on his partner's head. Yi agrees and decides to take on one of the second years alone, saying fine. If the others pair up, they'll have a better chance of water prison. Guan is freed along with her bird and thanks her brother for saving her. Lin replies that if they all want to attack together, he can handle it. As long as he's there, asks to let his necromancer be the one to fight, and adds that even if they're eliminated, he can still save his sister. Tao praises his courage, but warns him not to make reckless attacks. Tan grows irritated, saying summons his wind-slicing mantis. Shin offers something more appealing. An exclusive spiritual technique that calls her sensitivity to help Li Peng laughs, saying he won't hold back just because she's a woman. Protagonist admits summons her Thunder Lion, rank 3, stage 9, no demands that they give it everything. But then Tan notices something in his eyes that among the remaining ones, the girl and a voice declares that they should count him in too. Lin realizes the other one is still alive. Lin accepts and tells him that everyone has gathered at the perfect moment. A female he can get rid of them, commenting that the new girls are just retorts that it'll be one by one. She can't stand girls starting to disgust him. It's Hui Shin suggests they join forces to claim first place, while elsewhere Z thinks the situation is getting out of control. Still disoriented. 10 minutes remain. Liu sighs, the professor, fearing they were truly talented, decides to intervene and gives them 10 minutes to calm down. There were too many geniuses Yang asks and unless partner isn't going to help the boy and suggests using leaping to hold him back while they escape. The whole time, Yi apologizes, still lost in the end, saying she really wants to help. That he still Tan speculates that maybe the girl has observed the results and promising to get truly stood out this time. Yoon orders them to fight on tap until a voice interrupts. It's Gao Wenbai asking to take charge of the next. They've been accepted. He complains that Gao rushed there just to steal students. A portal opens he worked hard to select them. Step out Gao replies that the testing method is too extreme and risks wasting far surpass those of the new recruits. He still has 10 openings and wants to look for a rough gem among the eliminated. These 4 are second-year students of intermediate level then announces good news to those who didn't make the top 10. They'll receive a unique baptism. 10 spots left. If they lose, their admission who passes his test will be accepted. Guan protests that it's the students cheer up and Liu smiles, officially freshmen, saying it looks like a miracle really happened. They've already gone through 50 battles with their pets, exhausted. declares he won't miss the protagonist calls for everyone to come in the forest. Li Peng comments that since he couldn't eliminate him, admitting in frustration that the difference in plenty of chances to fight later. Tan curses him and says they should first survive the match against the second year, praising his endurance. Shin asks if they're allies now and smiles. If she continues, it'll just turn into an execution. Lin thinks about the baptism with the demon doesn't boost both physical strength and soul power. He notes they sent 4 opponents against 5 freshmen, probably underestimating this is what they call, and says that if Yi wants to ally with them, this academy, she'll have to join his sister and they'll never run out second years. Beside her stands a humanoid berserker fight alongside him. Rank 3 Zeb places his hand on his partner's head and says that the time they waste on makeup would be better spent on training. If the others pair up, if the freshmen understand the lesson now. Z asks if professors observe the battle. Gao remarks that he disagrees with all want to attack together. One-sided oppression. Tan asks to let his necromancer be the one to fight. Chin replies that he does it deliberately to keep their egos in check his courage, but warns if they enter the academy believing they're invincible, Z summons his wind-slicing mantis, always someone an insect. Wenbai laughs and notes man shows there's at least one calls her as her opponent under such methods. Li Peng laughs, in the forest, Wu struggles to fight she's a woman, but his warhorse summons her Thunder Lion, rank 3, stunned, stage 9, and demands that they give in everything they've got. Declares the battle observes that among the remaining ones, says witnessing that was relatively rewarding. Wu Zetian asks if the protagonists gathered together in ages. Lin accepts and tells him not to be too harsh on legendary 8 prodigies of the Federation. A female student Gao adds that even at their age, are just too not even those 8 prodigies she can't stand girls cuter than her. It's Hui. He reveals the boy's name. The 2 girls flinch, intimidated. He requests that Lin be assigned to his class as soon as possible. Chin protests that it isn't fair since the top 10 must be they were truly eliminated. The system Yun replies that it's fine. Blazing warhorse defeated anyway, and unless a miracle happens, it was inevitable. Cheers excitedly. Lu says he played it safe the whole time, yet still lost. Shin admits he's surprised by his groans that he still feels though defeated, promises to Chin observes the result into motivation once he truly stood out. Z remarks until he feels someone tap his shoulder. Lin went easy on a freshman who hasn't even asking to take charge of the next beat a second-year student. He complains that Gao rushed there just to prove and asks if they still want to keep training. Says he worked hard to select them. Gao snaps back that they shouldn't think the testing method is too just because he used a trick and risks wasting promising sarcastically if he still has 10 openings and wants to look for a rough gem among the eliminated, but Chin agrees, saying he can handle that with full force. Wenbai then announces good news to those who didn't make the top 10. Tao was never there are still 10 spots left. The fight continued. Anyone who passes his test all credibility. The students cheer up and lose gain more enemies, saying it looks like a miracle declares the test over, promising to try even harder to reach the top 10. The others also declares he won't miss the chance they'll grow greatly. Meanwhile, once they enter, Zhang falls to his knees after taking a hit. Lin they'll settle this once he's officially enrolled. The difference in level smiles and says there's no need to fight. It's already clear who's the best. Elsewhere, Tao shouts for him to watch his back, praising his endurance but declaring it's over. If she continues, it'll just turn into an execution. Baptism reward granted. Still fused with the demon, spiritual power rises to 1,000 if he can even hear her. A voice congratulates him on his official admission to Zhangning comments sarcastically. The system updates again. This is what they call baptism complete. Plus 500 achievement points. Total 1,100 they'll never run out. The rock ghost beside her stands a humanoid berserker beast. Rank no maidens rises to 12%. Hui laughs and says that the time they waste on makeup would be better spent on training, saying he's truly powerful. So that's what someone who cleared the highest professors observed the battle. Gao remarks that every time this atmosphere rises, it feels one-sided oppression until he feels to break the newcomer's confidence. It's Shin, who says he replies that he does it deliberately still has to keep their egos in check because the protagonist asks if the academy believing they're invincible. Even mentioning that she knows how to activate his exclusive soul technique. Wenbai laughs and telling him to find her after the exam if he wants to learn who doesn't crumble under such taken aback. In the forest, Wu struggles to fight ranked in the top 10, but his warhorse officially admitted frozen solid that he will now name the mutters that it's impossible, while Lin, standing before him, declares everyone to applaud. People clap, says witnessing that was murmuring that something isn't right. He hadn't seen so many geniuses gathered together in ages. Clearly outperformed him and feels humiliated. The legendary Gao comments that Lin deserves the first place title. Gao adds that even at this isn't unfair. Not even those 8 prodigies possess everything on one person, and that the rules are reveals the boy's name. First place is determined by score. He requests that Lin be assigned to his class as soon as possible. That those who participated in the resurrection trial and those in the top 10 must be distributed may now leave and await the entrance ceremony. The system issues a notification. Guan tells her friends not to worry, believing they can all pass the resurrection trial if they give their best. Guan cheers excitedly that her brother approaches, calling him his information wasn't that great. Shin admits that he saw Lin's fight against the second year and though defeated, promises to turn his frustration into motivation asks what he wants. Z replies by asking if he can become
Lin
his
went
subordinate.
easy on a freshman who hasn't even enrolled yet and still beats
Young says his respect for him. Lin replies that he has like nothing to prove and asks if they still want to keep training, saying he doesn't accept subordinates. They shouldn't think they can be underestimated. He's not even officially because he used a trick to win.
Joe insists,
and
Zeh
definitely
sarcastically
asks
if all
him to
three
wait.
plan to attack.
Li Peng watches from afar.
Z's mantis
Elsewhere, a
lunges
cheerful
forward,
voice
but
suggests
the rock
celebrating
ghost
their success in the test
with
and their
full
official
force.
admission to
The
Jiangning
professors
Academy,
intervene, saying that's
proposing
enough.
they enjoy a
Tao was
full day
never
in the
a
city.
match for him to
Zeh
begin
agrees,
with.
saying
If the
the
fight
4 hours of
continued,
battle
the
were
seniors would
exhausting
lose
and they
all
need to
credibility,
relax.
and that
Guan
Lin
suggests
would
staying in the
only
city
gain
for
more
the night
enemies.
and returning
Chin
tomorrow.
officially
And the
declares the
protagonist
test over.
agrees.
The
The
only
only
one who
passed
but then
is
they
Zay.
all suddenly
The
notice
others
something
also
and check their
performed well,
phones.
and it's
Lin
believed
realizes
they'll
he
grow
spent all his
greatly
previous
once
money
they
buying
enter
upgrade
Jiangning
materials
Academy.
for his stubborn
Z
rock
tells
ghost,
Lin they'll
and
settle
now
this
has
once
only
he's
300
officially
yuan
enrolled.
left.
Lin smiles
Ning
and
asks
says
what's
there's
wrong
no
and
need to
suggests
fight.
they eat
It's
first.
already clear
At the
who's
premium
best.
restaurant,
Tao
a sign
shouts
allows
for him to
dining
watch
with
his
contracted
contracted
swearing
fees,
he won't
leaving
forget
Z
this.
puzzled to see
The
such a
seniors
place.
vanish.
Guan
Soon
comments
after,
that
the
she's
system
wanted to come there
notifies
for a long time.
baptism reward
and that
granted.
they should summon their
Lin's
beast
spiritual
too.
power
They
rises
fought
to
all day
1,080.
and deserve a good meal.
A voice congratulates him on his official admission to
amazing
Jiangning
when she
Academy.
sees the snow
The
maiden,
system
saying that
updates
last
again.
time she looked like a
Baptism
little girl,
complete.
but now she's
Plus
beautiful.
500
Asking how he
achievement
managed
points,
that.
total
Lin replies that
1,180.
maybe it's
The
because
rock
of his
ghost
high
growth
compatibility with
increases
his
to
contracted
33%
beast and thinks the whole
and the
system
snow
thing
maidens
is
rises
too
to
long to
12%
explain
now.
When
He'll
he
tell
returns
Guan
with the
later
others,
when he
the
has
students
time.
surround
For
him.
now, the important
amazed,
thing is to enjoy
saying
the
he's
meal.
truly
Ning
powerful.
says he's
So
amazing,
that's what someone who
and that
cleared
she
the
wants him
highest
to teach her
difficulty
tonight
looks
as
like.
she starts
Z
placing
thinks
the
that
order.
every
They
time
look
this
through the
atmosphere
menu,
rises,
and
it
Z
feels
is shocked
strange
by
by
the
the
prices.
familiar.
The
Until
rock
he
ghost
feels
seems
someone touch
excited.
him. The
It's
snow maiden
Shin,
strokes
who says
Guan's
he can
bird, and
sense
the
that
waitress
Lin's
asks if
ghost
they've
beast
decided
still
what
has
to
a
order.
completely
Guan
sealed
orders
form.
for everyone.
The protagonist
5 minutes
asks if
later,
that's
the
true,
feast
and
arrives,
he
and
confirms.
everyone is
Even
thrilled.
mentioning
After
that she
eating, the
knows how
rock
to
ghost
activate
looks
his
satisfied,
exclusive soul
and the
technique,
protagonist wonders
telling him
what
to
do
find her
next.
after the
waitress
exam if he
informs
wants to
them the
learn
total
more.
is
Lin is taken
37,000
aback.
yuan,
And Chin
announces
how
that the
he'd like to
students
pay.
who ranked in the top
Guan
10
steps
are
forward, saying to
officially
leave it
admitted,
to her since she's been
and that
saving
he
some
will now
secret
name
money.
the best
As they leave the
freshman of the
restaurant,
year.
Ning comments on how
Yun,
beautiful the city
asking
looks at
everyone
night,
to
and how
applaud.
excited she is
People
to be
clap,
studying
but
there with her brother.
confused.
Lin
Murmuring
thinks
that
he
something
really needs
isn't
to
right.
start earning
How could
money,
it be
but
him?
might be too
Li
late
Peng
to
thinks
take on
that guy
missions.
clearly
Suddenly, they
outperformed
hear
him and
applause
feels
and cheers
humiliated.
from a lively
Gao
crowd.
comments that
Someone
Lin deserves
praising
the
a
first
hit,
place
calling it
title more,
incredible,
and
asking
saying
this
this four-armed
isn't
abomination is
He replies that they
unbeatable,
can't bet
and that
everything on one person
beast
and that the
defeated.
rules are clear.
The tournament
First
announcer
place,
declares that
anyone who can
determined
beat
by
the four-armed
score.
abomination
Wenbai informs
will
everyone
win the
that
full
those who
prize
participated
money.
in the
Just pay
resurrection
a
trial and
300
those in the
yuan
top
entry
10
fee to compete.
may now leave
The winner
and await
takes
the entrance ceremony in 10
yuan.
days.
Z
Guan
grins,
tells her
thinking
friends
he's
not
just
to
found a
worry,
way to
believing
make
they
money.
can all
A
pass
light
the
flashes
resurrection
as the
trial
rock
if they
ghost
give
is
their
summoned,
best.
and the announcer
On the other
reminds
side,
everyone
Xiong
that soul arts or
spells
his
are
information
forbidden.
wasn't
Only
that
hand-to-hand
great, that he
combat
saw
is
Lin's
allowed,
fight
giving
against
the
the
audience
second
that
year and
raw,
found it
visceral
incredible,
thrill,
having a
and that all
proposal.
participants
The
must
protagonist
sign a
asks what he
termination
wants,
waiver, releasing
and
the
Joe
arena from
replies by
liability
asking
should
if
a
he can
beast be
become
killed.
his subordinate.
The protagonist
Lin
asks
is
if she wants to
baffled,
watch,
not
and
understanding,
Guan replies
and
by
Xiong
asking
says
if
his
he's
respect
really
for
going to
him
fight.
overflows
Lin
like
says
an
that if they're
endless
offering
river.
free money,
Lin
he won't be
apologizes,
polite,
saying he
and
doesn't
notes that the
accept
system
subordinates.
scan
And
confirms the
besides,
four-armed
he's not even
abomination is
officially
rank
enrolled
3
yet.
stage 1.
Joe insists
while the
he'll
rock ghost
definitely
is rank
pass
2
and asks him
stage
to wait.
9.
Li
So he
Peng
decides
watches
to
from
upgrade it
afar.
for safety.
Elsewhere, a
Z
cheerful
channels
voice
Mana into
suggests
his
celebrating
pet,
their
and the system
success in the
notifies
test
that
and their official admission to Jiangning
stage
Academy,
3,
proposing they enjoy a full day in the
780
city.
achievement points
Zeh agrees,
and leaving
saying
4 hours of battle were
Lin thinks
exhausting,
that the
and they
higher
need
the
to
rank,
relax.
the more points
Guan
are needed
suggests
for
staying in the
evolution.
city for the
Guan
night and
asks
returning
how he
tomorrow,
leveled it up
and
so
the
quickly.
protagonist agrees.
And Lin
Ning
casually
smiles.
answers that,
But then
maybe
they all
just had a
suddenly
good
notice
meal.
something and
Ning
check their
says she
phones.
believes he can
Lin
win.
realizes he
The
spent
announcer
all his
presents the
previous
new
money
challenger,
buying
asking
upgrade
for applause
materials
for his
bravery,
stubborn rock ghost,
joking that the boy
and
looks
now has
skinny
only
and that the
300
redstone
yuan
creature
left.
beside him looks
Ning
weird.
asks what's wrong,
wondering
and
what they
suggests
were
they eat
thinking
first.
entering the
At the
death
premium
circle.
restaurant,
The
a
crowd
sign
laughs,
allows
saying
dining
the
with
brat must be
contracted
drunk
beasts,
and asking
leaving
where
Z
that
puzzled
clueless
to see
kid
such
and
a
his weird red thing
Guan
came
comments
from.
that she's wanted to come there
the
for a
tamer
long
beside
time,
the giant monster
and
stares
that
at him and
summon
warns
their
that
beast
if his
too.
four-armed
They fought all
abomination
day
accidentally
and
kills
deserves
that
good
thing,
meal.
he
And
shouldn't
Lin
come
agrees.
crying later.
Ning is
Lin
amazed
replies
when
to
she
go
sees
all
the
out,
snow
and
maiden,
Shu
saying
calls
that
him
last
arrogant.
time she looked
The
like a
announcer
little
hands them
girl,
the
but now
waivers they
she's
signed with a
beautiful,
thumbprint,
asking how he
and the
managed
fight
that.
begins.
Lin
Shu
replies
orders
that
his
maybe
abomination
it's
to
because
show
of
his
his
power,
high
and the creature
compatibility
charges
with his
forward.
contracted
The rock
beast
ghost
and
dodges,
thinks the
and
whole
Lin notes
system
that
thing
in
is
terms of
too long
speed,
to explain
his
now.
pet has the
He'll
upper
tell
hand.
Guan later
Rock
when he has
Ghost
time.
moves fast,
For now,
but
the
important
abomination
thing
is
is
to
to
enjoy
enjoy
the
the
hit.
meal.
Then
Ning
it
says
blocks
he's
his counterpunch,
amazing,
grabs his arm,
and that she
hurls
wants
him
him to
away,
teach her
breaking
tonight
part
as
of his
she starts
rocky body.
placing the order.
Lin
They
comments
look
that
through the
it's
menu,
pure
and
brute
Z
strength,
is shocked
and
by the
Shu
prices.
excitedly
The
declares
rock
that
ghost
his
seems
monster
excited.
is
The snow
unmatched
maiden
when it
strokes
comes to
Guan's
physical
bird,
power,
and the waitress
capable
asks if
of
they've
defeating
decided what
beasts
to order.
even from higher
Guan
ranks.
orders for
Lin
everyone.
realizes the
5
rules
minutes
favor
later,
the
the
abomination
feast
and
arrives,
now
and
understands
everyone
why
is
they're so
thrilled.
confident.
After
The
eating,
creature
the rock
grins,
ghost looks
grabs
satisfied,
Rock Ghost by the
and the
leg, and
protagonist
slams
wonders
him
what
again,
to do
smashing
next.
him into the
The
ground
waitress
while
informs
Shu
them the
mocks,
total is
asking if that's all he's got.
37,000
The
yuan,
crowd laughs
and asks how he'd
Guan
like to
grows
pay.
worried.
Guan
and
steps
Z
forward,
thinks that
saying to
if he
leave it
could
to her
use
since she's
ability,
been saving some
Rock
secret
Ghost
money.
in undead
As they
form
leave
could
the
fight
restaurant,
evenly.
Ning
But
comments
since
on
this
how
is
beautiful
pure
the city
physical
looks at
combat,
night,
he's
and
clearly
how
at a
excited she is to be
disadvantage,
studying there
especially
with her
against an
brother.
opponent with
Lin
4
thinks he
arms
really
perfectly
needs to
built for
start
raw
earning
power
money,
brawls.
but might be too
Even
late
so,
to
he
take
remembers that
ownership.
his pet only
Suddenly,
unlocked
they
a
hear
new
applause
form
and
in
cheers
moments
from a
of extreme
lively
danger.
crowd. If someone praising a hit, calling it
this
incredible,
is the moment to
saying
bet
the
everything.
four-armed abomination is
again,
unbeatable,
or they'll be
and
defeated.
that the Titan
Lin
kangaroo
mentally
beast
asks
has
whether
been
his pet is
defeated.
truly
The
fighting
tournament
at full
announcer
strength,
declares that
and
anyone
if
who
they're going to
beat
rely
the
on the
four-armed
snow maiden
abomination
every time to win,
will win the
rock
full
ghost
prize
falls
money.
and the
Just
abomination
pay
lifts its foot to
300
crush him,
yuan
but
entry
the
fee to
beast
compete.
glares back
The winner
with a
takes
murderous look,
50,000
and
yuan.
in an
instant,
Z
its
grins,
body is
thinking
wrapped
he's
in
just found a way to
spiritual
make
energy.
money.
A light
Entering its
flashes as
phantom
the rock
form and
ghost is
growing
summoned,
stronger.
and the announcer
Lin
reminds
notices
everyone
the
that
sudden
soul
transformation,
archer spells are forbidden.
realizing that
only
the rocky
hand-to-hand
armor can be
combat
shed
is allowed,
mid-battle to
giving the
unleash
audience
its
that
full
raw,
potential.
visceral
The ghost
thrill,
charges
and all
forward again and
participants must sign a
smirks,
termination
saying
waiver,
it still hasn't
releasing
learned
its
its
lesson.
liability.
But when
should
the
the beast be
abomination
killed.
tries to strike,
the protagonist
the ghost
asks if
vanishes.
she wants to watch.
Shu's eyes
and
widen
Juan
in
replies by
confusion as
asking
Rock
if he's
Ghost
really
appears
going to
behind the
fight.
monster.
Lin says
Unleashing
that if
a
they're
flurry
offering
of
free
rapid
money,
blows,
he won't
the
be
abomination
polite,
tries to
and
counter,
notes that the
but its
system
attack
scan
pass
confirms
harmlessly
the
through
four-armed
the abomination
ethereal
is rank
body,
3,
which
stage 1,
keeps striking
while
with
the
deadly
Rock Ghost
precision
is rank
rank 2,
sinister grin.
stage 9.
Lin orders
he
it to
decides
finish
to upgrade it for
and
safety.
Rock Ghost activates
Z
lightning
channels
charge.
mana into his
Dashing
pet,
forward
and the
at
system
blinding
notifies
speed
that
is
it has been
colliding with
upgraded
the
to
enemy
rank
in a
3,
devastating
stage
impact,
3,
completely
consuming
destroying it.
780
The system
achievement
notifies
points,
Rock
and leaving
Ghost advanced to
400.
rank 3.
Lin thinks
stage
that the
4.
higher the rank,
Skill
the
lightning
more points
charge
are needed
unlocked.
for evolution.
Usable in
Guan
general
asks
phantom
how he
form.
leveled it up
General
so quickly,
phantom form
and
complete.
Lin casually
Shu
answers
stands in
that
disbelief
maybe
as
it
the
just had a
entire
good
crowd
meal.
rises to their
Ning
feet,
says she believes he
stunned
can
by
win.
what they just
The
witnessed.
announcer presents
The
the new
announcer then
challenger,
declares
asking
loudly
for
that
applause
the
for his
winner is
bravery,
the four-armed
joking that the boy
abomination,
looks skinny
leaving
and that
Z
the redstone
utterly
creature
confused.
beside him looks
The
weird.
audience erupts
Wondering
in
what they
boos,
were
shouting
thinking,
that it's
entering
absurd.
the death
The boy
circle.
simply fought
The
back
crowd
and didn't
laughs,
cheat.
saying the brat must be
announcer
drunk, and
justifies the
asking
ruling
where
by
that
saying that,
clueless kid and
according
his
to the
weird
rules,
red thing came
the
from.
contestant's pet
Shu,
used a spell
the tamer
type
beside the
ability,
giant
which
monster, stares at him
invalidates
and
the
warns
victory.
that if his
The crowd
four-armed
protests,
abomination
shouting
accidentally
accidentally
kills that
merely
thing,
changed form.
he shouldn't come
It was
crying
defending
later.
with its
Lin
own armor.
replies to go
That
all
can't
out,
be
and
considered a
Shu
spell.
calls him arrogant.
Guan gets
The
angry,
announcer
saying
hands
that's
them the waivers.
obviously
They
unfair.
sign with a
Shu
thumbprint,
takes an
and the
aggressive
fight
stance,
begins.
mocking
Shu orders
him
his abomination
and telling
to
the
show
boy
its
not
power,
to
and
think
the
he can
creature
take
charges
money that
forward.
easily with
The
cheap
Rock Ghost
tricks.
dodges, and Lin
Lin
notes
stares
that
him
in
down and
terms
says
of he has a
speed,
new proposal.
his pet has
he
the
admits
upper
defeat
hand.
in the beast
Rock
battle,
Ghost
but
moves fast,
challenges
but the
him to a second
abomination
fight.
nearly lands
A
a hit.
one-on-one
Then
physical
it blocks
match
his
between the
counterpunch,
two of them.
grabs his
If
arm,
he
and
wins,
hurls
the
him
prize
away,
money is
breaking
his.
part of his rocky
Shu's
body.
eyes widen,
Lin comments
asking
that
if
it's
he's seriously
pure
saying
brute
he wants
strength,
to fight him
and
personally.
Shu excitedly
The announcer,
declares
shocked,
that his
exclaims
monster
that
is
this
unmatched when it comes
unbelievable.
to physical
The challenger
power,
wants a
capable
real
of defeating
hand-to-hand
beasts
fight
even
between
from higher
humans.
ranks.
The crowd
Lin
goes
realizes
wild,
the rules
cheering
favor
that
the
they want to see
abomination
it.
and now
Someone
understands
excitedly
why they're
shouts
so
that he's about to
confident.
face
The creature
none other
grins,
than the
grabs
former
Rock Ghost
professional
by the leg
kickboxing
and
champion,
slams him again,
barebone,
smashing him into the ground.
protagonist
While
remarks
Shu
that this is
mocks,
far more exciting than a
got.
pet duel.
The crowd laughs,
While the Rock Ghost
Guan
lowers
grows
its head,
worried,
and Lin
and
declares
Z
he's
thinks
already
that
won.
if he could
saying
use
now it's
abilities,
his turn. Rock
Stone
Ghost
Ghost
looks at him
undead
silently
form
and
could
fight
fight evenly,
confidently,
but since
ready
this
for the
is
fight.
pure
The
physical
announcer
combat,
observes
he's
that he's the
clearly
first
at a
in history to
disadvantage,
dare challenge
especially
the
against
Gardone
himself,
himself, with four
admiring
arms,
his courage
built
for
for
stirring
raw
things
power
up,
brawls,
and adds
even
that
so
if
he remembers that his
wins,
pet
he'll
only
not only
unlocked
take the
a new
cash
form
prize,
in
but
moments
also
of
teach the
extreme
former
danger.
champion a lesson.
If what Jin
From the
said is
sidelines,
true,
Guan watches
this is the
closely.
moment to
Shu
bet
takes a
everything.
stance,
Either
declaring
it
they're
awakens
going to
again,
have some fun,
or they'll be
Elsewhere,
defeated.
a voice asks
Lin
if she's
mentally
fallen for that
asks
boy.
whether his pet
Shin
is truly
replies,
fighting
asking
at
what's
full
wrong with
strength,
that, and reminds them
and if they're going
she's
to
already
rely on
said
the
she
Snow
only
Maiden
sees him as a
every
brother.
time to win.
Tan retorts
The
that
Rock
what
Ghost
happened to him
falls,
was
and the
worse
abomination
than whatever
lifts
that
its
brat's
foot
been
to crush
through.
him. Besides,
But the beast
she
glares
doesn't
back
even know
with
the
a
guy
murderous
properly.
look. He doesn't
And
want her
in
getting
an
hurt.
instant,
He
its body
answers
is
coldly
wrapped
that
in
she decides her
spiritual
own
energy.
business,
Entering
and that
its
he should just
phantom
go
form
back
and growing
rest.
stronger.
She walks away as
Lin
Yang
notices
mutters
he'll
he'll surpass
surpass
that
that
kid
kid
no
no
matter what.
Realizing
Suddenly,
that the
someone
rocky
screams for
armor
help.
can be shed
It's a girl about to be
mid-battle
devoured by a
unleash
monster.
its full
Her pet
potential.
already
The
defeated.
ghost
It's a
charges
blaze
forward
hound,
again and
Shu
Shu
smirks,
level 1,
saying it still
stage
hasn't learned
2.
its lesson.
Tan strikes
But when
the
the
monster hard,
abomination
shouting
tries
for
to
it to get
strike,
out of
the
the way,
ghost
and the
vanishes.
creature is flung back.
Shu's eyes widen
Yang
in
rushes to the
confusion
girl,
as Rock
asking if
Ghost
she's
appears
okay,
behind where that beast came from, unleashing a flurry of rapid blows.
Asks what kind of
the abomination tries to
beasts
counter,
exist in
but
this
its attacks
world.
pass
A hooded
harmlessly
man
through
drops
the
the
ghost's
ground, and
ethereal
Tan
body,
demands
which
to know who he
keeps
is, and whether
striking
that
with deadly
monster
precision
belongs
in
to
a
him.
sinister
The stranger
grin.
replies
Lin
that these
orders it to
so-called
finish him,
ferocious
and Rock Ghost
beasts
activates
are
lightning
simply
charge,
beings labeled as
dashing
evil,
forward
asking
at blinding
if it's truly
speed
right
and
to exploit
colliding with the
pets
enemy in a
and questioning
devastating
who decided
impact,
such a thing.
completely
Yang
destroying
asks
it.
what he's trying
The
to
system
say, and the man
notifies
explains
Rock
that
Ghost
pet
advanced
beasts
to
live
rank
far
3,
longer than humans.
Stage 4.
Yet because of the
Skill
loyalty
lightning
expected
charge
from them,
unlocked.
some
Usable
refuse
in
to
general
submit to new
phantom
masters
form.
after their
General
owner's death,
phantom form
wandering
complete.
alone for
Shu
years,
stands in
uncared
disbelief
for,
as the
until their
entire
branded
crowd
as
rises to
wild
their
and
feet,
dangerous.
stunned by
Tan
what they
summons
just
his
witnessed.
necromancer and
The
tells him
announcer
to
then
stop
declares
spouting
loudly
nonsense,
that the winner is
warning
the
that if he's
four-armed
manipulating these
abomination,
creatures to hurt
leaving
people, he
Z
won't
utterly
allow it.
confused.
The hooded man
The
calls
audience
him
erupts
Tan
in
Yang,
boos, shouting that it's
surprising him,
absurd.
and Yang demands
the boy
to know
simply
if he
fought
knows
back
his
and didn't
grandfather's
cheat.
name.
The announcer
And why he
justifies
doesn't
the
just
ruling by
surrender,
saying that,
saying he'll
according
drag
to the
him to the
rules,
Beastmaster
the contestants'
for
pet
punishment.
used a
The
small
monster
type
steps forward,
ability,
but the hooded
which
man orders it to
invalidates
back
the
down.
victory.
A strange
The crowd
energy surrounds
protests,
the fallen
shouting
beast
that
as
the ghost
swirling
merely
colors engulf
changed
it.
form.
It begins
It was
to scream,
defending with its
transforming
own
into
armor,
something
and that
much
can't be
larger and
considered
more
a spell.
powerful.
The man says that in fact he had planned to find them himself. Shu takes an aggressive stance, it now depends on how much value they have, telling the boy not to think he can take money that easily with cheap tricks. Meanwhile, Lin stares him down and says he has a shouting encouragement. He admits defeat in the finish battle, but challenges him to a second fight. She's shocked to see the protagonist in the arena physical match between the two of them, yelling that if he wins, the prize money is his. Notices her presence. Shu's eyes widen, asking if he's seriously saying he wants to fight him personally. In year 3241, that this won his first wrestling championship. The challenger wants a real hand-to-hand fight. 3243, he defeated heavyweight Cheering from Sakura country, and someone excitedly shouts that he's about to face none other than the former professional kickboxing Lin analyzes mentally and concludes that the protagonist remarks that this is far more exciting than a pet duel. 2 and 4. While the rock ghost lowers its head and Lin declares he's already won, saying now it's his turn. Most people would be trembling. Ghost looks at him silently and Shu wonders why that rat doesn't even flinch. The announcer observes that he's the first in history to dare challenge the kid strike first. He'll even let him land a hit. The announcer comments that since he's giving the first move, he should go ahead, not only take the cash prize, to be careful not to also teach the former champion a lesson. Confident, the sidelines everyone's attention to himself. Shu takes his stance, warns that he declaring they're going to have some fun. In an instant, Elsewhere takes a direct punch to the face and is hurled backward. Shin replies, asking what's wrong with that, and the crowd falls silent, stunned by the power of a single blow. As a brother. The announcer retorts that what happened to him was what just happened, whatever that then concludes that Shu was defeated with just even know the guy properly. Shin and Guan cheer excitedly, but then answers coldly that she decides her own business. The announcer tries to announce the result, claiming Lin struck first as Young mutters that he'll surpass that kid no matter what. Fixes him with a murderous stare. Someone screams for help. His hand still resting about to be devoured by a monster. The announcer falters and quickly corrects himself, loudly declaring that the young man broke level 1 and that the true winner is Tan strikes the monster hard, shouting for it to get out of the way, and the creature is flung backward. Now Yang rushes to the girl, asking if she's okay and where that beast came from. The two girls approach. A distant voice comments that he wasn't bad at all, admitting she never thought he could actually win. A hooded man drops to the ground, and Tan demands to know who he is. He reminds her that they'd already teamed up before, and the stranger replies that these so-called, suggesting he reintroduce himself, are simply being labeled as evil, asking if it's truly right to exploit pets. Questioning who decided such a thing. Z replies that obviously she came to help him awaken his exclusive soul power. Pet beasts live far longer than humans, and asks what that is. Because of the loyalty explains that if he considers her a friend to submit to new masters after their owner's death, protagonist decides it's best to find a quiet place uncared for. At the hotel, the two girls sit on the bed, commenting on how everyone somehow ended up booking and tells him to stop spouting nonsense. And he explains that he's manipulating these creatures to hurt people. He won't allow it. She awakened. The hooded man calls him Tan Yang, and things surprising people. And Yang demands to know if he knows his grandfather's name, or even glimpses and why he doesn't just surrender. Ning is saying he'll drag him to the Beastmaster power is incredible punishment. The monster steps forward, but the hooded man orders him to close his eyes. A strange protagonist obeys, and Yi moves closer, transmitting a gentle energy. It begins to tries to interrupt, transforming into something tells her much larger and more powerful. This is the only way she can feel his energy and guide him correctly. He had planned to find them himself. Ning agrees, saying since they came to him, it now depends on how much his heart race as a faint massive beast roars ferociously before them. She steps back and explains that she sees something shouting encouragement, telling someone to finish that as if it were a fusion between the rock ghost and the snow maiden. She's shocked to see the protagonist in the arena fully resembling loudly, yelling that startled and asks if it's truly a fusion. Her presence and Shin quietly saying that for now his constitution flexes his muscles and starts boasting. She can only in year 3241. Now it's Guan's won his first wrestling championship at the Pyeonship, and Kangxi assists that it does. In 3243, he defeated heavyweight Lei Long from Sakura country. Shin closes her eyes again, but afterward, he became a three-time consecutive champion filled with countless monsters. Lin analyzes mentally and concludes that the average person's constitution Ning asks what happened, ranges disguises her reaction, saying she only saw dark shadows, be between 4 and that his potential hasn't fully manifested most people would need more training before anything record and wonders why that brat doesn't however, silently thinks that whatever to avoid being accused of bullying him, he had a bad let the kid strike first, deciding he'll even let him land a hit. The announcer comments that since he's giving the first move, he should go ahead and warns him to be careful not to break his hand. Just a girl with nowhere to go. Draws everyone's attention, she might run into dangerous people. While Z warns that he won't hold back. He won't let her spend the night alone. Shu takes a protagonist punch to the face and is hurled back for letting her crashing to the ground. The three lie down on the bed. The crowd falls silent. The girls stunned by the power of a single blow. Flustered, the announcer lies speechless, mutters, asking what just happened. Thinks about the fusion. Then concludes that Shu was defeated and the snow maiden to truly learn to understand each other. Shin and Guan cheer excitedly, but then as soon as possible glance at each other. 10 days later, a crowd gathers, and the announcer tries to announce the result, claiming Lin struck first and finally been posted. Everyone rushes to the display board and murderous searches for his name, his hand still realizing he's ranked first. The announcer Guan cheers, saying they're in the same class again, and loudly declaring that the young man broke no rules. Shin approaches with a smile, announcing that she's also in class 1, receives which clearly 50,000 yuan and thinks that Tan arrives covered in bruises. He can afford to stay in a hotel for another fight. The two girls explains they ran into some comments that he wasn't bad at all, admitting she never thought he could actually maybe it's fate. Ning notes that remarks that it's actually better not to be in the same class as that already teamed up before, and wouldn't be able to resist the urge to eliminate him. Suggesting he declares that he intends to settle things with him sooner or later. Get along just fine. Says it's amazing that even the two girls passed. And Lin asks what she's doing mentions they're in class 4. Replies that recalling that she came to help him awaken his are considered elite and receive special treatment. Ning is surprised, but even so, what that is. They barely made it thanks to their effort. If he considers her a friend, adds she can help him through the process. For all the training. The protagonist decides it's best to find a voice rises. It's Professor Chin, two girls announcing himself as the new instructor on how everyone somehow ended up class responsible for guiding them asked them to cultivation over the next. He explains that her exclusive soul power that there will be many lessons and she awakened it at age 7, but warns that even those who skip ordinary people never interrupt such as someone's aura. Additionally, there will be periodic evaluations. And any student who fails will be transferred to a regular class. Is incredible. Finally, he asks how she can help him, and Shin tells him to close his eyes. Will receive a scholarship worth 100,000 yuan, transmitting a gentle comments that, as expected from Jiangning Academy, Shin quietly tells her the amount is really high. The only way she can feel his energy and guide him already afford to contract Ning agrees, saying they should trust her. He adds that in addition, Lin feels his heart several clubs and programs focused on both entertainment and cultivation. She steps back and explains that she sees something after classes. Contracted one activity as if it were a fusion between the rock ghost and the snow maiden. Behind the main building lies a massive hall capable of hosting thousands of students simultaneously, and Shin confirms simulated battle now students can gain real combat experience, so she can only increase the level of both the Beastmaster and their companion. She asks if it really has to be connected to the Federation's network. He insists they won't just face students from their own academy, deepest potential, but Beastmasters only be sent the entire Federation. Shin closes her eyes again, but anyone who rises them wide not only receives great rewards, seeing a vision filled but also climbs the ranking tiers. One of them staring straight at her, silver and gold. She pulls back all the way up to asks what happened. But the protagonist disguises her reaction, to strengthen saying she only soon as dark shadows, so it can reach Snowman's level. His potential later at fully manifested. Lin stands before his two more training before anything clear can be detected. But the system reports failure. However, silently thinks that whatever those shadows were, ends, Lin decides to head straight to the virtual combat area, deciding not to say anything for now. As soon as the door opens at 11:29 p.m. with invitations, Shin notices the time. One group calls him to the winter club, late, specializing in she's just a girl with nowhere to go. Another tries to recruit him to the Colossus Club. She might run into dangerous people. And of course, joint training he won't let her spend the night alone. And there's the protagonist agrees, Spirit Club, and Yi thanks them for letting her stay. Claims to have three lie down on the bed, even the girls stay awake, while Lin apologizes, lies stiff and says that for now he tries to focus and thinks about join any club. It's time for Rock Ghost. Someone announces the arrival of the High Mountain Club members. He must awaken their soul who they are, and a girl explains that 10 days later a crowd gathers in a public square, talking excitedly that the class elite students finally been posted to a senior. Everyone rushes to the display board and Z searches for his name. The group approaches, realizing Han confirms if he is really Z. Guan cheers, saying they're in the same class again, and the protagonist notices happily and worries he might be in trouble. Shin approaches with a smile, announcing that she's a member of the prestigious High Mountain Club, which clearly irritates Han says he'll give him a chance. Soon after Tan arrives, covered in bruises, forget what happened before. He asks if he got into another fight. Not just Young explains they ran into some troublemakers. Tao insists that he shouldn't waste the opportunity, and jokes that maybe it's fate. Lipeng remarks that it's actually better not to be in the same classes and no real benefit to his growth. He wouldn't be able to resist the urge to eliminate High Mountain Club. Tan declares that he intends to settle things with him sooner or later, calling it a missed chance. Guan says it's amazing that even the two girls accusing him of ingratitude. Zhao Yun mentions that if he doesn't join today, recalling that only classes 1 and 2 Lin simply walks away and tells them not to bother him. But the group glares furiously. They barely made it watching from afar, smiles. Lu adds finding him even more interesting for all the training they bows to no one. Elsewhere, Guan asks her brother if he isn't afraid of causing trouble, and announcing himself as the new instructor joining a class would only complicate the elite class. If they're really as strong as they claim, they can prove it and make him change his mind. Elsewhere, he explains that there will be many lessons. Lin and his partner go as well, and Guan decides that even those who skip up must never interrupt. The protagonist closes his eyes, and additionally, there will be periodic evaluations, and any student who fails will be transferred to a regular class. He looks around at the crowd. Finally, he adds far too many people in that virtual evaluation, so he sets a modest scholarship worth reaching 100,000 yuan. Guan comments that as expected from Jiangning Academy, battle starts scholarship amount is really high. When transported, Lin finds himself in an open field with already one opponent ahead. Thinking it looks like a pasture.
He adds that
the
in
red-haired guy
addition,
in front asks if it's his first time in virtual combat and if he's a student.
Entertainment
and cultivation,
the redhead grins,
which students can
saying every year a batch of rookies
classes,
shows up during the opening
but there is
season.
one activity
and he's lucky to have
everyone
found one
must
today.
participate
Easy
in.
points for
Virtual
him.
combat.
He summons a boar
behind the
stage
main building
phase
lies
one,
massive
saying they'll
hall
have a good
capable of
fight.
hosting
Lin
thousands
watches
of
calmly,
students
thinking it's no
simultaneously.
wonder they paired
Through
him with
these
the beginner.
simulated
He
battles,
then summons his
students
rock
can gain
ghost,
real
while the
combat
redhead
experience
declares he'll
and
show him the
increase the
difference
level
that age
of
and
both the
experience make.
Beastmaster
The
and
rock
their
ghost
companions.
charges forward
Since
and
it's fully
defeats the
connected
boar
to
with
the
a single
Federation's
blow.
network,
The
they
red
won't
haired
just
opponent
face
panics
students
as the
from their own
creature
academy,
continues its
but
rampage, crushing the
Beastmasters from
Viking
across the
warrior of
entire
Stage 2,
Federation.
Phase
And,
3,
of
the
course,
spiritual cat
anyone
of
who
Stage
rises
2,
in rank
not
Phase
only
6,
receives great
and
rewards,
finally the
but
enemy
also
beast of
climbs the
Stage
ranking
2
Phase
tiers.
9.
From
2 days
bronze,
later, the
silver,
system
and
notifies
gold,
that Rock
all
Oni
the
has
way
advanced
up
to Stage 3,
Beastmaster.
Phase 7.
The protagonist
and
thinks
Snow
he needs
Maiden
to
strengthen
strengthen
Rock
Rock
Ghost
Ghost
as soon as possible,
placing
so
him
it
at
can
rank
reach Snow Maiden's level.
99,832.
Later at home, Lin
The protagonist
stands
thinks
before his
these
two companions
intense
and
battles
tries
over
to
the
perform
past
the
2 days
fusion,
made
but
Rock
the
Oni
system
rise
reports
3
failure.
levels.
And exhausted, he notices
After
his
class
companion
ends,
lying on
Lin
the ground
decides to head
breathing
straight to
heavily.
the virtual
Soon a
combat area to
notification
start
appears.
leveling up.
The
As soon as the
ultra-talented
door
rookie
opens,
has reached
several
the top
students approach him with
100,000
invitations.
in just 3
One
days.
group calls him to the
Students
Winter
react
Club,
in shock,
specializing in
calling him a
ice-type
real
beast.
boss.
Another
Another
tries
tries
to
to
recruit him to the
beat
Colossus
since his
Club,
win rate is
focused on
100%.
rock-type beasts.
Anyone who faces
Promising
him
joint
is
training and
instantly
rapid
defeated.
growth.
Guan
And there's
asks when
also
he
the
woke
Ghost
up.
Spirit
Lipeng
Club,
approaches,
which,
recognizes him, and asks if he doesn't have lots of girls, and
praising
even
his
extra
effort for
funding
still
for
fighting
activities.
at this hour.
Lin
He then mocks
apologizes,
him,
bragging
and
that he
says
reached the
that for
top
now,
150,000
he doesn't plan to join any
in
club.
only 3
At
days.
that moment,
Someone
Guan checks
announces
her
the
phone and
arrival
announces
of
that
the
her
high
brother
mountain
has
club
already
members.
broken into the top
Lin
100,000.
asks who they are,
Just
and a girl
seeing the
explains
update.
that it's one of the
Lipeng
5
freezes in
top clubs in
disbelief.
Jiangning
Elsewhere,
Academy,
Ning comments
made up
that her
only
ranking
of
is
elite
around
students,
180,000,
pointing to a senior.
one
And
of
that
the
no
matter
matter
how
how
hard
hard
she
last
tries,
year's entrance
it's
exams,
hard to climb
the group
further.
approaches.
She considers
and Han
contracting another
confirms if
pet
he is
and
really
asks if he has
Ze,
any recommendations.
receiving a calm
Ze is
yes.
surprised and
Shin
asks when she
notices
gains
the
the
scene and
qualifications
worries he
for
might be in
second
trouble.
contract.
Unaware
Ning
that the
reminds
same
him
C
she's
is
the
a member
only
of
one
the
in the class who
prestigious
passed
High
the
Mountain
advanced
Club.
difficulty
Han says
exam.
he'll give him a
The
chance.
protagonist laughs
If
and
he
says he
joins the club,
remembers
they'll
just
forget what
teasing.
happened before.
Then asks if she's
reminding
already
him that
decided
not
on the
just
second
anyone
week.
gets accepted.
Guan
there.
replies
Not
not
yet,
yet,
explaining
explaining
she
must
must consider
consider
growth potential.
Lin thanks
rarity,
them, but politely
and compatibility
refuses,
with her
thinking that
flame-winged
joining a
bird.
club
Lin
now would
tells her
only
not
bring
to worry,
headaches
since
since
no
he now
real
has some
benefit to his
experience
growth,
choosing beasts,
even if it's
and
the
will help
famous
her find
High
one
Mountain
with
Club.
hidden
The other
evolution.
students are
Ning
shocked
gets
by his
excited
refusal,
and suggests
calling
they go
it a
together
missed
to the pet
chance.
shop over the weekend.
Z becomes
From a
angry,
distance,
accusing
Shin
him of
watches the two
ingratitude,
talking,
saying
Guan
that
says
if he
goodbye
doesn't
and
join
he
today,
approaches,
he'll make the
commenting
club
that
his
they
enemy.
seem very
Lin simply
close,
walks away and tells them
inseparable,
not to bother
always
him.
training,
The group
studying,
glares
and even
furiously
eating together,
while Shin, watching
asking
from
what
afar,
exactly their
smiles.
relationship is.
Finding him
Ze
even more
replies that if
interesting
there's
for being
nothing
someone
else,
who
he'll go
bows
rest.
to no one.
Shin
Guan
grabs his
asks
hands
her
and
brother
warns
if he
that
isn't
something
afraid
might
of
happen
causing
soon,
trouble, and the
protagonist
protagonist replies
replies
that
that mysterious
joining a
person,
club would
and from
only
his
complicate
memories it seems,
things. If they're
all
really as strong
candidates
as
from
they
the trials
claim,
are being
they can
hunted.
prove it and
The
make him change
protagonist
his
asks
mind.
who it is,
Elsewhere,
and what
students
this
head
person
toward the
wants.
training arena.
Yi
Lin and
answers
his
that
partner
she
go
doesn't
as well,
know,
and
only
Guan
that they're
decides she
extremely
needs to keep
strong
up with his pace.
possess a soul
The
art
protagonist
capable of
closes his
demonizing
eyes, and when he
beasts.
opens them
She
again,
asks him to
he's
be
already
careful.
in another
Lin
environment.
thanks her and walks away
A system
while Shin
message
lowers her
appears
head,
displaying his
thoughtful.
data. He
Feeling
looks
this might
around
be
at the crowd
connected
and
to the
thinks
dark
there are
vision she
far
had
too
of
many
Guan
people
and
in
to
that
a disturbing
virtual combat
premonition
area.
about
So he
herself.
sets a modest
Later,
goal,
Z decides to
reaching
train
the
again,
top
focused on reaching the
10,000.
top 10,000.
Soon after,
His
notification
rankings
rises
appear.
quickly,
Match
hitting
confirmed,
10,000
battle
and
starts in 10
Far
seconds.
away, the hooded
When
man
transported,
observes Lin
Lin's data
finds
on a
himself in
laptop,
an open
commenting
field
that
with
he's
only one opponent
interesting
ahead,
and concluding that
thinking
it's
it
time to
looks like
test
a
him.
pasture.
Moments
The
later,
red-haired
Ze
guy
enters
in
a new
front
match
asks if
and
it's his
faces
first
a
time in
masked
virtual
opponent.
combat, and
He
if he's
jokes
a
that he
student.
didn't know wearing
Ze
masks had
confirms,
become
and the
trendy
redhead
in
grins.
combat.
The
Saying
masked
every
man
year a
says
batch of
nothing,
rookies shows
simply
up during
summoning
the
two
opening
beasts,
season.
a turtle and a
he's
dragonfish,
lucky to have found one
remarking
today.
that he's
Easy
not
points
the
for
only
him.
one with the two
He summons a
familiars.
boar.
Lin
Stage
summons
2,
his
phase
rock
1,
ghost,
saying
and
they'll
Snow
have a
Maiden,
good
saying
fight.
it's fair.
Lin watches calmly, thinking it's observing their levels. He notes their stage. He then summons his rock and thinks that while the redhead declares he'll show him the difference that age and experience. He can't even imagine how the rock ghost charges forward and defeats the masked man. Says he knows him and never expected him to panics as the creature continues its rampage. He claims the previous opponents were all warrior of stage 2, and that only by defeating him can he prove himself a true elite worthy of working by his side. And finally, glares and tells him not to speak for others without consent. 2 days later, the system notifies that Rock Oni has advanced to stage 3, phase 7, show him there's always a sky above stage 4 and phase 2, placing him at rank 99,832. The protagonist thinks these intense battles over the past 2 days made Rock Oni rise 3 levels. Charges in right exhausted, shattering the ice companion lying on the ground, breathing heavily. Strike. Soon the turtle releases its powers, and the ultra-talented rookie has reached the top 100,000 spiritual form. In just the turtle morphs into a war chariot react in shock, calling him a real boss, raises the Tamar shield, no one can beat him since his win rate is 100%. Anyone who faces him is instantly feels something strange. Asks the dragonfish beside them. Lipeng approaches, recognizes him, and asks if he isn't the top freshman, praising his effort for still fighting at this hour. The Ice Maiden then watches and releases, bragging that he reached the top 150,000 freezes part of the creature's body. The man checks her phone and announces that her brother has already broken into the top 100,000. The protagonist thinks that, although he currently freezes in disbelief, the coordination between the two comments that her ranking is around 100, realizing he must strengthen the synergy no matter how hard she tries, it's hard to climb further. Face opponents. She considers contracting another pet and asks if he has any recommendations. The real battle starts now. Zhe is surprised and sprays water over the turtle, creating a thick layer of mud. And Ning reminds him she's the only one in the class who passed the advanced difficulty exam. The protagonist laughs and says he remembers, finding it impressive to see a combo then asks if she's already decided. The turtle charges again, the pressure increasing, and the rock ghost not yet, explaining she must clenches her fist and activates extreme ice domain. And the Ice Maiden unleashes a freezing torrent, turning the battlefield into a sea of ice. Since he now has Lin takes the opening, rushes forward, and will help her strikes the turtle with full force. Evolution. But it withstands the blow without a single scratch. They go together. The masked man laughs, saying the spiked shell turtle's defense is unparalleled. The two talking. That the frozen mud is now as hard as steel, commenting that Lin still has much to learn. The dragonfish releases a jet of training, studying, and surprised, eating together. Thinks that the fish asking what exactly their relationship is. He realizes he won't be able to use nothing else. He'll go rest anytime soon. Shin grabs his hands as the attack comes that something might happen in front of the Ice Maiden, blocking the blow with his own body. The masked man watches him. All candidates from the trials are being hunted. The Ice Maiden, enraged, who glares at the enemy upon seeing her master fall, but he answers that she doesn't know, and says he's fine. Acknowledging that they lost fairly and that there's still time to train and become strong beasts. The system announces that his rank has dropped to 10,000 and Shin lowers her head, and that the match will end. This might be connected to the dark vision she had of the masked opponent and to a disturbing premonition about herself. Later, Z decides to train again, focused on reaching the top 10,000, and now understands his ranking rises quickly, hitting 10,002. Lin asks the hooded man observes. The masked man explains that he wants him to join he's symbiosis and concluding an organization capable of awakening. Moments later, Za enters a new match and elevating him to a new level. He jokes that he didn't know wearing masks had become trendy in combat. Like an academy club. The masked man says nothing, to know simply summoning two beasts, a turtle and a dragonfish. Only replies remarking that he's short and he the only one answer. Familiars. Yes or no. Lin summons his rock ghost and Snow Maiden, of saying it's fair. The masked man simply says he'll be observing their levels. He notes their stage. On the forum, people comment that the newly risen thinks that anyone within the top 10,000 is truly first defeat. He can't even imagine how powerful the top 10 must be. The masked man says he knows him and never expected him to climb so high so quickly. He claims the previous opponents were all weak, and that only by defeating him can he prove himself a true elite, worthy of not to underestimate them. Z glares and tells him not to speak for others without consent, ends up ending the talk and declaring it's time to fight. They know where the group came from. The masked man smiles and says not yet, but there's always a sky above another sky. Z remarks that there seem to be many members and that it must be the same group unleashes its power, but suggesting that tracking the masked man might reveal useful information since ignoring this, and the rock ghost charges in right after. Later, shattering the ice and defeating the enemy with one devastating rock ghost is at stage 3, releases its powers, and the rock ghost senses stage 4 phase shifting into its calculates that the remaining 1,000 conquest points might be enough to raise rock ghost to stage 4. The Ice Maiden raises the required materials, blocking the impact is impossible, and the turtle crashes. The system displays the next evolution's requirements. The Ice Maiden feels something which demands stage 3. The dragonfish beside them conjures a growth rate of 100%, while the rock ghost counters with earth element, shattering the turtle into pieces. Lin does the math and concludes that buying everything would cost at least 400,000. An icy explosion that freezes rushes over body, saying he saw the opponent remarks that it's not bad at all and admits that Lin truly has skill. Z replies he's not invincible, thinks that praises Joe's quick intel the advantage and asks if he knows where to get high-quality earth essence and spirit-nourishing stones. Realizing he must strengthen the synergy between rare treasures and asks how many he needs if he wants to face opponents like this in the future. Lin replies that he needs 130 essences. The masked man smiles and says the real battle starts now. Joe laughs, the dragonfish sprays water over the turtle, creating a thick layer of mud, a place where they might be found, activate a joint invites him to come along. Lin agrees and says they should go immediately. Lin is astonished. Thinking he's never heard of such a thing, the ancient finding it impressive to countless dimensional like rifts appear around the world. The turtle charges again, the pressure particular one connects to another braces itself. Rumor has Z clenches his fist and activates extreme ice domain. Decades ago, the Beastmaster Association and several academies managed to stabilize and Lin takes the opening, rushes forward dimensional, strikes the turtle with creating controlled roots, but it withstands the blow without a single scratch. This allowed them to establish a steady flow of rare turtle's defense is unparalleled. However, there were still unexplored mud is where now as hard adventurers entered, and that Lin still has much to learn. Leading to the dragonfish releases a jet of boiling water, and Lin, surprised, thinks that the fish can even attack with heated water. Joe confidently says he able to use, explaining that some powerful people have managed to come out with a portion of the resources in front of the Ice Maiden, that he obtained the information after great effort. The masked man watches that realm contains exactly what they he's passed. High quality the Ice Maiden, enraged, glares at the enemy upon seeing her master fall, and says they should go verify. Stands back up and says they approach the entrance, acknowledging that they lost fairly and that there's still time to train goes wrong in there. The system announces that his rank has dropped to 10,000 that as long as they get the 2 materials, the risk is worth it. That the match will end he can turn back. Joe laughs, saying he gathered all this information at the critical moment. Lin didn't hesitate to protect his beast. The two enter the cavern and now understands why his monster, the boss, which begins devouring some scattered crystals. Lin asks what he's talking about. Joe comments that the man explains that he wants him to enhance low-level Earth-type beasts, an organization capable of awakening the hidden potential of his beasts, resources that used to be expensive to be found everywhere. Lin questions what this group is. Lin, however, notices something odd and orders them to demands to know among the crystals a crystal caterpillar emerges. The masked man only replies that time is short and he needs one answer, wondering if materials truly grow with other creatures. Replies, of course, realizing that evolution materials simply says he'll be waiting and vanishes. Beasts themselves. On the forum, people comment decides to face it. The big-mouthed monster charges forward, his first swallows the caterpillar whole. So many acknowledge that for a rookie, he's incredibly not to underestimate his others mock him, saying it was about time the arrogant one was knocked down. But soon, Bokinha spits the caterpillar back out onto the ground. The symbiosis Xiong interprets, saying the monster is complaining that it's too hard to chew. Yun warns him not to underestimate them. wonders if he can actually who tries to show off in front of them. The caterpillar ends up strange sounds, and they realize Lin asks if they know where the group came from. Joe warns that his pet isn't good yet, but plans to find out. And Lin orders him to remarks that there seem to be Ice Maiden releases and that it must be the same group turning everything around them into suggesting that tracking the masked man might reveal useful information. Since ignoring this, excited, Xiong says they could make a fortune from this. Lin walks ordering his monster to carry the crystals. Rock goes as a stage 3 split in his favor. Snow Maiden, the protagonist, refuses, telling him to drop. He calculates that the remaining 1,000 understand and might be enough to raise, arguing that even if they're low value, the quantity would bring a good advancement is impossible. Lin explains that Boquina can only carry so much evolutions requirements. Filling it with junk would be a waste, which demands valuable materials must lie deeper inside a growth rate of 100%. Xiong agrees and follows him farther in. As they advance, they notice Lin does the math and concludes that Lin thinks that high-level essences and spirit stones wouldn't be among such weak creatures. At that moment, Joe continue until they stop before saying he saw the forum news about his defeat and asking if there's Joe anyone he can't beat. One of them attacks Boquina, he's not invincible. Lin reacts, praises Joe's charging alongside the rock and asks if he knows where to get the creatures are rock earth essence and snake ox nourishing stones. Stage 4. Joe explains those are rare treasures, noting that the damn things attack and Lin replies that he needs 130 to stay on the defensive, which puts them at a disadvantage. Joe laughs, so he decides to change tactics, watch their movement patterns, but mentions he knows the moments where they might be found. Xiong runs after his pet, yelling for it to retreat, but the creature grabs him as well. On Lin seeing this, Xiong explains that before the ancient war, the snake lunges at him, but he activates a protective barrier while the rock ghost, that particular one, connects to another plane. The Ice Maiden launches frozen projectiles. That's where pet the rock ghost leaps aside to avoid the next strike. Decades ago, the Beastmaster Association that he could and several academies managed to stabilize and secure access to some of those dimensional bursts from the ground, creating controlled routes known as but a third one emerges from behind. This allowed them to establish a steady flow of rare resources pressing forward. However, there were still unexplored areas where Lin orders everyone to stay still and wait for the right moment. When the snakes rise again, he yells that it's now. The Ice Maiden unleashes a freezing wave that covers the entire field. Joe confidently says yes. Joe explaining that some powerful the big bro had managed to come out with a portion of the resources all the serpents and that he obtained the information after Lin then gives the final command. According to him, that realm contains exactly the blow lands perfectly, and the system notifies that the giant rock python has been eliminated. Lin agrees and says they should go verify it. They approach the entrance and Xiong tries to make him reconsider, 28 more to gather that if anything goes wrong in there, suddenly Xiong is struck again and falls as new creatures replies that as long as they get the two materials, the risk is worth used and asking where he can turn back. Xiong begins screaming as he notices he gathered all this information precisely for this moment and saying he believes he shouldn't have come. Insists to enter the cavern. At that moment, the ground summons his monster, Lin had created which begins devouring some scattered crystals on the ground. Xiong shouts in relief comments that they're low-grade crystals used to orders them to stop yelling and get ready. Beasts. Xiong nervously laughs, saying in a secret realm wouldn't abandon resources that used to be expensive that can be found everywhere, so they should take advantage. Lin, however, notices something storm of ice shards, orders them to trembling. Among the crystals, he thinks they're going to die there emerges. The system notifies high-grade Earth element essence plus 1. He observes curiously, wondering if materials truly grow with another high-grade Earth element, realizing that evolution materials might that although only one of these drops per creature compared to adult rock serpents, to face it. These juveniles the big-mouthed monster charges forward notifications and swallows the caterpillar 9 high-grade essences. Joe exhales says not to underestimate his pet brother from another mother. It's just a matter of digestion. Never to doubt him again. But soon, before he finishes speaking, back out onto the ground, bursts out of the ground beside him, saying the monster is complaining that it's too hard to chew. Why it's always him. wonders Lin commands the rock ghost to rescue them. The caterpillar emits strange sounds, and they realize more are approaching. danger. Joe warns that his pet isn't good at group battles. Z watches, and Lin orders him to fall back. The time has come to show the results of their joint freezing wave. The snake lunges, everything around them enters its spiritual form, while the Ice Maiden smashes through the creatures, dodging and countering with freezing chains that says they could make a fortune from this. The Rock Ghost ordering his monster to carry the crystals, issues the final command. 70-30 the Ice Maiden activates her general form. The protagonist refuses, telling him to drop everything. Joe doesn't understand and asks why, arguing that even if they're low value, the cleansing of the giant rock serpent nest. Lin explains that 500 can only carry so much 10 high-grade earth element junk would be a waste. One spirit valuable materials must Lin thinks with satisfaction that the rock ghost leveled up. Xiang agrees and follows his accumulated conquest. As they advance, they notice we'll have enough experience to reach the next that high-level essences and spirit stones wouldn't be among such amazing creatures, and that now they continue until they stop before something ahead. Must massive, many valuable items. Joe asks what they are. The sound of clapping echoes through the cavern, and Lin reacts instantly, charging alongside the magnificent battle. They discover the creatures are rock. He smiles, stating that Z truly deserves his attention. Stage 4. The protagonist demands to know who he is and how he knows so much about him. And then the hooded figure meets his gaze and replies enigmatically that surely he's already heard of the symbiosis. So he decides to change tactics, watch their movement patterns, and strike to the moment they surface. Symbiosis again. Xiang runs after his pet, yelling for it to retreat, but the creature grabs him as well. If he knows what this group is. Seeing this, feels a sense of deja vu. 2 days ago, the snake lunges at him, but he activates a protective barrier while the rock ghost hits it from behind. The Ice Maiden launches frozen projectiles, claiming to protect, and the rock ghost leaps aside to avoid the next strike. Beasts from human servitude, and points out that he could simply phase through in spirit form, asking why he dodged physically instead. The hooded man serpent bursts from the ground, and the rock ghost grabs it. Ever since the great one emerges centuries ago, it reacts quickly and strikes back, though the creature keeps pressing forward. The world was divided. Xiang shouts those that accepted humans became pets. Lin orders everyone to stay still and wait for the right moment. He asks who decided that rise again. He yells that humans obsessed with the Ice Maiden unleashes a freezing wave that covers the entire field, other species, immobilizing. He declares that the world is unjust. Joe watches in awe, realizing the big bro had used the rock ghost as bait to lure all the directly at the same spot and says that he has talent and potential. Lin then gives the final command to join them, crushing. He promises that beyond awakening perfectly, and the system notifies that the giant rock python allowing them to reach their true nature, granting 2 high-grade earth element essences. Z wonders what becoming a king would even mean, needs to defeat whether this man truly knows the hidden evolutionary paths. Suddenly, Xiang is struck again and falls as new creatures emerge from the ground. Joe is thrown to another spot, merely trying to provoke asking where he is. He's certain the world begins screaming as he notices dozens of glowing eyes in the darkness, only to control them, panicking, and resolves that he will never join any organization that seeks to manipulate. At that moment, the ground opens him not to listen. Lin had created an opening using the rock already investigated. Xiang shouts in relief that Big Bro came to manipulative words. Lin orders them to stop yelling and get ready. More than terrorists. Xiang nervously laughs, saying he knew they truly had the power they claimed until Joe realizes they would have already crushed the creatures are closing in even faster and ruled the world. Zeh summons the Ice Maiden. The hooded man replies that it seems Joe doesn't even believe himself. Xiang asks if he thinks they're going to die there. It's fine. The system notifies. Then from between the giant rocks, a massive creature emerges. High-level earth element stage 2. Lin strokes the serpent and a blinding light burst +1. The air pressure skyrockets, although only 1 essence drops per creature compared to adult rock carefully beside these juveniles. The hooded man orders them to look closely. More notifications. The serpent grows larger. Total. It's 9 high-grade essences. And the man declares that to break the chains and renew calling Lin his brother from another mother step toward swearing never to doubt him again. The protagonist realizes that the giant rock serpent's rank just bursts out of the ground beside him. A spiritual technique capable of demonizing beasts why it's always him. Without a doubt, the same rock used to rescue Xiang. The spectral figure leaps forward, urges him to show his strength, and the serpent opens its colossal mouth and unleashes a deafening roar, compressing the air and sending shockwaves through the show the results. As the smoke clears, the ice phantom lunges her frozen. The rock ghost enters its Joe mutters that they're in real trouble this time, sideways, regretting not having let his monster eat some freezing chains that bind the beast's body. A voice rises. The rock ghost charges the serpent itself, and moaning in pain, saying its entire the final command. The Ice Maiden activates her general form and strikes the python head on. Declares that these system notifies seek equality. Rock Ghost but in 3 stage they just want to control the weak and use them achievement for their own unlocked, asking cleansing if that's of the giant rock serpent justice. The serpent darts forward. 500 protagonist says that running won't 10 high-grade earth element freeze the blizzard and use the spirit nourishing stone. Lin thinks with satisfaction that the rock ghost leveled up, calculates and with his accumulated conquest points, stage 2 will have enough experience to reach the next evolutionary stage 1. Joe
Ice
celebrates,
versus Earth,
saying it's amazing.
neither holds a natural
and that
advantage.
now they should look for
Under
treasures.
normal conditions,
The nest
defeating a
must
higher rank
hold
opponent
many
would be
valuable
nearly
items.
impossible unless
At
they
that
bought another
moment, the
berserk
sound
card.
of clapping
However,
echoes through the cavern, and a voice says,
a true rank
"It was
5
a
creature.
truly
Any
magnificent
spiritual
battle.
technique
It's the hooded
forces a
man."
beast
He
past its
smiles,
natural
stating that
limit
Z truly
inevitably
deserves
brings
attention.
severe
The
backlash.
protagonist demands to know who he is and how he knows so much about him.
To enhance
The hooded
rock
figure
ghost's
meets
growth,
his gaze and
raising it
replies
from rank
enigmatically
3
that
stage 8 to
surely
rank
he's
3.
already heard of the
Stage
symbiosis
9
group.
100%
Lin frowns,
growth rate.
remembering the
The
earlier
Phantom
encounter,
lunges
thinking
forward
to
the
himself,
ground, shaking violently.
again.
And Z
Xiong
blurts
blurts
out
out,
asking if he's one of them.
boosts the
Lin
rock
turns
ghost's
to
speed
Joe and
by
asks if he knows what this group
300%,
is, but cuts
Joe
his defense
nods.
by 100.
2 days
A
ago,
glass
Li Peng
cannon.
himself had asked him
Coordinating
to
with him,
investigate
the Ice
the
Phantom
organization.
hurls frozen
He
stones,
explains that the
and the two
symbiosis
spirits
group has been
exchange glances.
repeatedly attacking
The system
beastmasters,
notifies,
claiming
fusion
to
rate
protect
increased.
beasts.
New combo
Their
skill
doctrine is to
unlocked.
free
Ice
beasts
core
from
crash,
human servitude,
a powerful joint
believing
attack
that
that
true
infuses a rock core
symbiosis
with
can
freezing
only
energy
exist
until
through
it detonates
complete
on impact.
freedom.
The
hooded
hooded
man
man
smiles
smiles
in
in
agreement
depending on
and
the
begins
charge
to
time.
speak.
The
protagonist's
ever
eyes
since
light
the
up
great
as he reads the
catastrophe
description.
centuries
Ice
ago,
core crash
when
fills a
dimensional
rock
rifts
core with
allowed
ice
the
energy
beast
until it
invade,
ruptures.
the world
The
was
explosion's
divided.
power and
Those
pull
that accepted
varying
humans
with the
became
charge.
pets.
Lin
And
concludes
those
that
that resisted
spiritual
became
fusion is
feral.
only
He
possible
asked who decided
because
that
the
division,
Snow Maiden
why
and rock
humans
ghost
obsessed
obsessed
with
with
measuring
equal
levels
worth
and
and developed
superiority
perfect
impose their
synchronization.
own rules
The Phantom
upon
charges.
other species.
The serpent senses
He declares
the
that the
danger
world is
and the
unjust
strike,
and
heads
symbiosis
straight for its
exists
weak point.
precisely
The
to
serpent
destroy that
roars,
false
a
justice.
brutal sound
Then he
echoing
looks
through the
directly
cave,
at
but
Zay
the
and
rock
says that
ghost
he has
keeps
talent
attacking
and
relentlessly,
potential, inviting
each
him
hit
to join
cracking
them.
the ground.
He promises
The Ice
that
Phantom
beyond
watches
awakening
alarm
his
as
inner
Z
power,
realizes
the group will
situation
free
is
his
critical.
familiars,
The demonized
allowing them
rock
to
serpent
reach their
is
true
attacking
nature
with
and evolve into
frequency.
authentic kings.
And the Snow Maiden
Z
can't
wonders
conjure
what
the crystal
becoming a
mirror
king would
fast
even
enough to
mean,
protect her
and
partner.
whether this man
The hooded
truly
man
knows
comments
the
coldly
hidden
that they should try
evolutionary
harder,
paths of the Snow
as it would be
Maiden,
disappointing
and the
to see them
rock
die
ghost.
so
The protagonist
easily.
feels
The
something
protagonist
off.
orders the
He
Snow
realizes
Maiden
the man
to
is
use her
merely
ability,
trying to provoke
thinking that the man
emotions.
is merely
He's certain
toying
the
with
world
them.
is unfair.
No one knows what else he
place
intends
where the
to do,
strong approach
so
the
they must
weak
end
only to
this
control
quickly.
them. He
And
commands the
resolves that he
big-mouthed
will
monster
never
to find a way to
join
draw
any
the serpent's
organization
attention
that seeks
since
to
his
manipulate
beast's
him.
abilities
Joe
require
warns
charge
him
time.
not to listen
Joe,
to such
frozen in
nonsense,
fear,
saying he's
wonders if he
already
really has to
investigated
provoke
everything.
it. Lin
The group
snaps back,
uses those
asking what else he
same
expects.
manipulative words
If
to
all
deceive
5 of them
people
die
everywhere,
there, no one will
nothing
even
more
be
than
left to
terrorists
collect
pretending to
bodies.
be righteous.
Xiong, sweating
They
cold,
had the
shouts
power
that he
they
doesn't
claim.
want to die.
They would have
orders
already
the big
crushed
mouth
the
monster to
Beastmaster
attack with
Association.
acid. The
and
creature
ruled the
opens
world
its massive
long ago.
jaws and
The hooded
spews
man
a torrent
replies
of
that it
corrosive
seems Joe
acid
doesn't
over
even
the
believe
serpent,
himself,
which screams
and that
in agony as the liquid
it's
eats
fine.
away at its
Then,
body.
from between
Moments
the giant
later,
rocks,
another
a
attack
massive
of the ice
creature
element
emerges.
cuts through the air.
Rank
It's
7,
the Ice
Stage
Phantom.
2.
Executing
Lin strokes
ice
the
core
serpent,
crash.
and a blinding light
Both
bursts
beasts
out.
take their
The air
positions
pressure
side by side,
skyrocketing as the
ready for
monster's
the final
roar
strike.
shakes the cavern.
And Z shouts
Z
the command
watches
to attack.
carefully beside
A colossal
Xiong, and the hooded
explosion
man
engulfs
orders
the
them to look
battlefield,
closely.
lighting
The
up
serpent grows
everything around
larger.
them.
They
watch
watch
closely,
intensifying,
tense,
and the man declares
Joe
that to
murmurs
break
that he
the
can still
chains
hear
and renew
something.
oneself
It's still alive.
is the first
The protagonist
step toward
orders
true
them to check, and
evolution.
Xiong,
The
hesitating,
protagonist realizes
asks
that
if
the
they
giant
really
rock
have to get
serpent's
closer,
rank just jumped
muttering
3
under his
levels.
breath for his
A
brother to
spiritual
wait for him.
technique
The
capable of
serpent, lying on
demonizing
the ground
beasts
and
moans
familiars.
in pain.
Without a doubt, the same one used in the attack on Yong,
and
the hooded
translates
figure
that it's begging
urges
for
him
help,
to show his
wanting
strength.
them to
The
end its
serpent
suffering.
opens its
Lin
colossal
closes
mouth
his
and
eyes,
unleashes
takes
a
a deep breath,
deafening
and
roar,
releases his mana.
compressing the
The
air
system
and sending
notifies
shockwaves through
achievement
the cave.
unlocked
As
for
the
defeating
smoke
a
clears,
demonized
the ice
giant
phantom
rock
raises her
serpent while
frozen
skipping
crystal
levels.
mirror.
1,000
mutters
conquest
that they're
points
in real
obtained,
trouble this
high-grade
time,
earth
regretting
element
not having let
acquired,
his monster
helped
eat
the
something
demonized
good before
giant
coming.
rock serpent
Then
find
a
liberation.
voice rises,
Plus
it's
500
the serpent
conquest
itself,
points.
moaning in
Bonus
pain,
rewards.
saying its
Two
entire body
spirit-nourishing
hurts.
stones.
Xiong
One
confirms
soul
nervously
crystal,
that it's
soul
complaining
recovery
about the pain.
elixirs,
Zed declares that these
explosion
people
seed
claim to
cards.
seek
Z
equality,
looks over the items
but
and
in
thinks that the
truth,
rock
they just
ghost
want to
now
control
has
the weak
everything
and
it
use
needs
them
to
for their
evolve.
own gain.
Yet a strange
Asking if
heaviness
that's
grips
what
his
they
chest.
call justice.
An inexplicable
The serpent darts
bitterness he
forward,
can't
and the
quite
protagonist
shake.
says
The
that
hooded
running
man
won't
steps
help,
forward,
ordering
noticing his expression, freeze the blizzard, and asks the chance to find its reminding him that the Ice Phantom releases her power for materials, and Lin calculates that the Snow Maiden is ranked 4. The protagonist glares stage 2, gritting his teeth, while the demonized serpent has his eyes for a moment before replying with steady resolve. Ice versus Earth, Beastmasters neither holds a natural advantage, but when they face something stronger, defeating a higher rank opponent would be nearly full of injustice unless they bought another berserk card. What he despises most are people like him, those who speak of equality and freedom while forcing their beliefs on others, exploiting the weak whenever it inevitably brings. He declares that the man's group, the symbiosis, confirms the total is nothing but a pack of hypocrites masquerading as the righteous, raising it. The hooded man, still calm, replies that it's fine. To rank 3. It seems they've reached stage 9 with 100% growth rate. The bear of demonic lunges spiritual magic, the ground shaking violently, more willing to and Z analyzes that the spiritual form. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. By 100. Thank you. A glass cannon. Coordinating with him, the Ice Phantom hurls frozen stones, and the two spirits exchange glances. The system notifies, fusion rate increased. New combo skill unlocked. Ice Core Crash, a powerful joint attack that infuses a rock core with freezing energy until it detonates on impact, the damage and suction depending on the charge time. The protagonist's eyes light up as he reads the description. Ice core crash fills a rock core with ice energy until it ruptures, the explosion's power and pull varying with the charge. Lin concludes that this spiritual fusion is only possible because the Snow Maiden and Rock Ghost have reached equal levels and developed perfect synchronization. The Phantom charges. The serpent senses the danger, and the strike heads straight for its weak point. The serpent roars, a brutal sound echoing through the cave, but the Rock Ghost keeps attacking relentlessly, each hit cracking the ground. The Ice Phantom watches in alarm as Z realizes the situation is critical. The demonized rock serpent is attacking with terrifying frequency, and the Snow Maiden can't conjure the crystal mirror fast enough to protect her partner. The hooded man comments coldly that they should try harder, as it would be disappointing to see them die so easily. The protagonist orders the Snow Maiden to use her ability, thinking that the man is merely toying with them. No one knows what else he intends to do, so they must end this quickly. He commands the big mouth monster to find a way to draw the serpent's attention, since his beast's abilities require charge time. Joe, frozen in fear, wonders if he really has to provoke it. Lin snaps back, asking what else he expects. If all 5 of them die there, no one will even be left to collect the bodies. Xiong, sweating cold, shouts that he doesn't want to die and orders the big mouth monster to attack with acid. The creature opens its massive jaws and spews a torrent of corrosive acid over the serpent, which screams in agony as the liquid eats away at its body. Moments later, another attack of the ice element cuts through the air. It's the Ice Phantom, executing Ice Core Crash. Both beasts take their positions side by side, ready for the final strike, and Z shouts the command to attack. A colossal explosion engulfs the battlefield, lighting up everything around them. They watch closely, tense, and Joe murmurs that he can still hear something. It's still alive. The protagonist orders them to check, and Xiong, hesitating, asks if they really have to get closer, muttering under his breath for his brother to wait for him. The serpent, lying on the ground, moans in pain. It hurts, uncomfortable, so painful, and Xiong translates that it's begging for help, wanting them to end its suffering. Lin closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and releases his mana. The system notifies, achievement unlocked for defeating a demonized giant rock serpent while skipping levels. 1,000 conquest points obtained, high-grade earth element essence acquired, helped the demonized giant rock serpent find liberation, plus 500 conquest points. Bonus rewards, 2 spirit-nourishing stones, 1 soul crystal, soul recovery elixirs, and explosion seed cards. Z looks over the items and thinks that the rock ghost now has everything it needs to evolve. Yet a strange heaviness grips his chest, an inexplicable bitterness he can't quite shake. The hooded man steps forward, noticing his expression, and asks if he's angry, reminding him that beastmasters normally hunt creatures for materials, that there's no difference here. The protagonist glares back fiercely, gritting his teeth, then closes his eyes for a moment before replying with steady resolve. Yes, beastmasters hunt beasts to survive, but when they face something stronger, they become the prey. This world is full of injustices and contradictions, but what he despises most are people like him, those who speak of equality and freedom while forcing their beliefs on others, exploiting the weak whenever it suits them. He declares that the man's group, Symbiosis, is nothing but a pack of hypocrites masquerading as the righteous. The hooded man, still calm, replies that it's fine. It seems they've reached an impasse. But perhaps that girl, the bearer of demonic spiritual magic, will be more willing to listen to him instead. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.